Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Retroactive Trio podcast. I am, of course, your patient zero, Zombie JLT1,
I am Retro Rock.
And I'm Chris from Big Family Gaming.
and we are here to talk about the topic you guys voted on, which is the video game based movies we have in existence today, both good and bad. The reason why this was a topic of choice because recently we did have the Uncharted movie drop not too long ago. Some of you may have already seen it, some of us may have not. I'm one of those who have yet to check it out. So once everybody kind of gets the chance to see that, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, whether in chat, on Twitter, on all the social media that we have access to, because I'm eager to see what you guys thought about that movie because it's been getting a lot of mixed reviews. I don't know what you guys have seen online about it just yet, but at first I heard it bombed. It's a terrible movie. Then I started to see an uprise in people saying, no, this is actually a good movie. It's one of the best. I'm not the most devoted Uncharted fan out there. I've played the games a couple times, but I'm not a highly devoted fan, as I would say, like the Metroid and Mega Man franchise. So those of you who are fans of the series, feel free to share your thoughts on that. No spoilers, please. We do want to try to keep it spoiler free as much as possible. But with that being said, we're looking at some of the previous films that have been made as far back as the Mario Brothers movie, which you all can see there. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the pro and con of making a video game adapted movie, and then also some of the bombs deemed by theaters, but also those that we kind of hold true to our hearts despite what the critics say, because I'm pretty sure that among the trio and among all you awesome people out there, we probably have some guilty pleasures of our own. So I'm eager to hear what you guys all have to say. But as always, does anybody have any announcements they want to drop? Any upcoming purchases they're making? Any lot pickups? Anything you guys want to share real quick?
Nothing too crazy. I got a couple PS1 games in the mail today, but Die Hard Trilogy
Nice.
and a loose copy of Diablo. So,
Very cool. Very cool. Just the original Diablo game or the actual like Diablo chess set?
no, just the PS1 Diablo.
I see. Okay. I've been meaning to get my hands on one of those sets, even though I probably wouldn't be able to play it. I mean, I could play it on my laptop, but I'd need an external drive for that because this one doesn't have them anymore. So,
Um, hey,
but
that DVD player you got would probably work.
I'm hoping it does. It's
I
it's
bet it
been
would.
it's been doing its job as far as our Discord movie nights are concerned. I'm still torn about getting the uh, the port that came out on Switch and all the next gen consoles because I don't know if anybody's even playing those anymore. They were the talk of the town for like a week or so, and then it just kind of disappeared. So I don't know. I don't know who's playing that out there anymore.
I picked up that Batman Remastered Trilogy. It's like only $8 and you get all three. Like Arkham, all the Arkham ones. It's on Xbox. It's only $8. It's normally
Nice.
6. It's normally 60 for all three. So any of you Batman fans, I mean that movie's dropping in what, a week or two. I think
Mm-hmm.
just in
Yep.
a week. So it's timely to get on all three of those Batman games again if you haven't in a while, if you never played them, because you can get all three right now, $8 on Xbox.
And despite his well-known established character as a sparkling blood-drinking pixie, I'm not going to call them vampires. I'm actually impressed a little bit by Robert Pattinson's portrayal of Bruce Wayne in Batman. I kind of see him as sort of like an in-between portrayal. Um, And I'm kind of convinced at this point that he's gonna do a good job. I'm not gonna say that he's gonna bring home an Academy Award winning performance or anything just yet, but I'm gonna give him a break, and I'm gonna try to make it out to that movie somehow, whether in theaters or if we have to wait to stream it. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if anybody else is. I've already read some of the backlash. Of course, there's always bad press associated with anything in Hollywood nowadays, especially when an actor wants to try to break away from what they're known for. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's probably gonna do an okay job at least.
He's done other stuff since then.
Yeah, he has,
He's done other stuff like after the vampire movies. He tried to distance himself.
and he has gone
Same
on record
with
saying he
the
he
girl.
kind of regrets doing it too.
Same with the girl. The girl. What's her name?
Oh,
The
Kristen Stewart,
Because she did that Runaways movie. I thought she was good in that.
Mrs.
Where
I can't act my way out of a paper bag, and I can't keep my mouth closed no matter what I do.
yeah. Well, the two I'd picked that I thought she was actually good in. She played Joan Jett in the Runaways movie. That's
Yeah.
actually a good rock doc. And
Mhm.
Adventureland, she wasn't bad in it. Although I think the kid is better in it. The kid that played in the Facebook movie. See, I'm bad with actors and actresses' name. But the kid that was in the Facebook movie, he was in
Right.
Adventure, and she was in that, and like those were the two I'd say that she did a decent job in. But yeah, she ain't no Meryl Streep.
Mhm. I actually liked her in that movie Underwater, but not because of her acting, but just because her acting and her characters fit the tone of that movie. I like it for way different reasons, but for what she was hired to do, she did an okay job with that. But I
I want to
can't
talk
give
about
her
a Kristen or Kirsten that's way worse than her is Dunst.
Dunst.
She's garbage. Okay, go watch the Spider-Man if you think that chick can act, because she can't.
Oh man, as much as the Sam Raimi trilogy is cherished by fans, I never could escape that even while I was watching it. Like she was okay in the first movie, but that's cuz she barely made an appearance in it. The more involved she got in the movies and the more her character annoyed me with her petty jealousy and all that crap. Just yeah, I don't know if that it's kind of like Hayden Christensen with the Star Wars prequel trilogy. The first appearance in Attack of the Clones, he's terrible. But by the time he gets to three, either his acting ability improved or they just wrote for him better in that movie. He was much different and much better in the Revenge of the Sith than he was in Attack of the Clones. That's kind of how I feel about Kristen Dunst, but in reverse, where she started good and got worse as the series went along. Um, but yeah, I agree. I feel that some of these actors that are really trying to break away from the roles that kind of solidified them in Hollywood deserve a break, but not all of them, because I'm still not impressed with a lot of them. And maybe that's something to be said about how these movies are written or the directors they work with. I mean, you kind of have a sixth sense for how a movie's going to play out just by knowing either who's in it or who's directing it, so to say. Um,
Let me
but
ask you this: video game based movies. Has there ever been a Ninja Gaiden? Because think about Ninja Gaiden on NES.
mhm.
Great writing
Yeah.
in the game.
Cinematic
That would
wise,
be a great
absolutely.
word right there.
Uh,
Yeah.
to answer that question, yes and no. There is an anime-based film, loosely based on the games that is in existence, but it's not a live action. It's
Yeah.
purely anime. Uh,
Shame, because when you think of video game based movies, what's going to be the first thing people say is that the script is going to be shallow because there isn't much of one when you play a video game. Usually,
mhm.
you know, unless you're talking about like a really expansive game, there really isn't usually something amazing for a script. So you end up getting something that's almost like, you know, just people just say it's better as a game because you can't make a movie out of it. And
Mhm.
that's usually what happens.
I feel like some properties should be left alone because of the fact that even if they make even if they make for a great game and possibly a compelling movie, that doesn't necessarily mean that the media is going to transfer over. And I think that's what intrigues me about the topic today because like I said, everybody has their guilty pleasures. Everybody has movies that they like that probably most people don't. And I'm gonna wager that even some of these video game based movies kind of tug at the heartstrings um, over the years. Because I can honestly tell you that there are some featured in this picture that I still enjoy, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Only because of the fact that as I got older and I researched these films more in depth and saw just kind of what the crew had to deal with, I kind of give them a little bit more of a passing grade than I would have, say, 10, 15 years ago when I didn't know what I know and would have just completely shat on the movie and said like, "Wow," and say things like, "Well, you ruined my childhood," and shit like that. Because honestly, do they really do that? If something as grand as, say, a Tomb Raider movie that flops, if you're gonna put that on the line and say that, well, that movie ruined my childhood, if that's really all your childhood was, then I don't know if I should feel bad for you, because
Who
you know,
who 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 directed Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Peter Jackson.
Why has like Nintendo not done a Zelda movie like with Peter Jackson or somebody like that?
I
Well, I think that goes back to them being jaded from
Oh
the
yeah.
Mario Bros.
Yep.
Uh, when they,
Sure.
there's been a lot of talk about a Zelda Netflix this or series
Mhm.
that, but Nintendo is so protective with that property. They won't. They refuse to let it be used in a way that has any potential for failure.
That's
Now,
true.
I know what you're talking about with Peter Jackson and how great of a job he did with Lord of the Rings, but that's how old school and protective Nintendo is. They won't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won't risk what happened to the Mario franchise happen again, and I can't really say I blame them because Mario still being probably the most recognized character in Nintendo's history and still probably one of the biggest franchises in their existence. They took a big risk by doing that, by letting an American company take their take their copyrighted material and just butcher it the way that they did.
It was
It didn't affect the games.
No.
It didn't affect game sales. It just made it impossible to make another movie because it flopped.
Yeah. Yeah. And fans still saw it. Fans still went and saw it despite how it turned out. And some of us bought it on VHS, some of us bought it on DVD, some of us will probably buy it on Blu-ray or a steelbook edition if they ever
so
make one, you
full
know.
disclosure of the Mario Brother movie. I've never watched it the whole way through.
Okay.
I- I've seen good chunks of it, here and there. And about the only time I remember watching the most of it was back on the day when it would come on HBO, and I was at like my cousin's house because they had HBO,
Right.
and
Listen, I don't
I would
think
watch it, but they would immediately turn it off. They didn't want to like the thing me watching it. They're like, you don't want to watch this shit.
I just don't think Mario should have ever gone live action, whereas Zelda I think was meant for it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that also you have to keep in mind too that even if the source material could still work as a film, that doesn't mean that they can find the right person to make that happen because a lot of times what you'll see uh, the success with making at least an adaptable film is when the fans do it. When the fans make film projects, whether they be like 3 5 minute videos or full blown half an hour, hour and a half projects, that's where you're going to see the source material being handled. And I think that's also part of the problem is they're paying Hollywood directors to make these movies. They're not paying fans to help either direct or co-produce them, which is actually cheaper labor than hiring within the industry. And I think that's what we need. We need more of the fans to have a say in how the story should be told, how it should be presented, because we're the ones playing the games. But maybe that's just not a feasible approach. Maybe that's just something they don't want to go out and do because it's easier to
It's
hire from
almost
within.
it's almost like they should know though. They should know better. Like they should know that that should have never been live action, because like on paper now we could all probably agree that we could imagine like Pixar and like the Toy Story team doing like a Super Mario movie in that style of art and
Hmm.
animation. We could imagine them doing even a Donkey Kong style movie in that
Yeah.
style of art and that team with the sense of humor they have and the you know what I mean? Even whoever did Despicable Me, like movies like that, that type of style would fit that. Like we would know better than to make Donkey Kong a live action either. It shouldn't be done.
And don't forget too that they've also gotten their feet wet by making cartoons based on these video games, and most of them kind of flopped. Most of them kind of lasted maybe a season or two, and that was probably it. So they've kind of gauged a little bit what kind of works and what doesn't. Do they go
Yeah.
full blown? All right, copy everything word for word, screenshot for screenshot? Do they take liberties with the material? Chris James brought up that while he likes the Super Mario Brothers movie, he doesn't consider it a Super Mario Brothers movie. You know,
Right.
like it's more of a take on it rather than, oh, this is completely adapted
Well,
from the video game.
you know another one I'm thinking of, but it's not based on a video game. But I mean, how they fucked up He-Man, the movie. I
Hmm.
mean, because they could have done that in a Conan style, right? Like kind of like Arnold. That
Well,
was a great,
definitely.
Right.
and if they had done it right, it could have been amazing. But they went in that really like I don't even know how to describe that movie. It's so weird. Just the decision they made in that movie and making it current day and like going in the city. Like He Man should not be in the fucking city ever.
Hmm.
Like you know what I mean? Like they literally like, had like He Man in the hood at one point. Like it's just like what are you doing?
Right. Yeah,
Like you got to be insane.
and it's not even He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, it's just Masters of the Universe.
And they were playing with time travel when they shouldn't have been.
Hmm.
And I know that's kind of a stretch because it's not a video game, but I'm just saying that's another example of like a property that we can relate to in this kind of a way, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
they make missteps in the execution of it. It's
Right.
all about the execution.
And
So
whereas
everyone
I
was
go on
saying,
record and say that Dolph Lundgren did a good job with what he was given, I believed he pretty much was He-Man. It just sucks that they didn't have the alter ego Prince
Yeah.
Adam to kind of bounce off of and toy with.
Oh yeah, and even the guy that played Skeletor, he's fine, but the whole overall direction of the movie was a mess. It's like they didn't know what they were doing. They threw like everything in a blender,
Hmm.
and it was a mockery. It was an embarrassment. Especially to the fans, and it's just like with given the right execution and maybe a more medieval Conan style, straightforward, that could have been amazing.
Right. And maybe that's what hurt a lot of these movies because whereas we the fans who are paying to see these films or Redboxing or streaming or however you're viewing it, whether you saw it when it first came out or you saw it when it came out later on home release, is it truly the fault of the writers, of the directors, the actors, or is it actually a conglomerate of all of it that we should be kind of blaming and saying, hey, you didn't have enough respect for this source material to make a successful movie? I saw a comment earlier that, let's see if I can scroll back up real quick. Someone had mentioned that the movie, I think it was Ikun, who had said that the movie the Mario movie was kind of doomed to fail. So it has a charm to it, kind of its own unique charm, because you go into it knowing that they're probably not going to be accurate, that they're probably not going to pull off the movie
Yeah.
that we want. But now with the release of the new upcoming Mario movie, and everybody's up in arms about who is it that's playing Mario again? Chris Pratt.
Yes, Chris Pratt. Yep.
I'm wondering if that movie's gonna bomb so badly that there's gonna be an increase in love and appreciation for the live action Mario movie.
I don't think it's gonna bomb.
I
I
don't think
don't.
it's bomb either.
Mhm.
I think they're going with Chris Pratt because they're playing it so safe with
Right.
this. That's a him in the Jurassic Park movies. They know there's asses in the seats every time he's in a Jurassic Park. They're playing it super safe
Right.
with that choice. They're trying to get a known name that people are. I mean, nobody's like. It's hard to find somebody that's like, I hate Chris Pratt. Like you're not gonna find a lot of people that say that.
Well, maybe
People
his
are indifferent.
ex-wife.
People might be indifferent to him at this point.
Mhm.
They might be indifferent to him. It's a case of one of those like somebody's in so many movies they get to be annoying. You
Uh-huh.
know, like just seeing them so much.
Right.
But like, remember the Nicolas Cage era when he was just in every fucking movie, and you're like, why? Why are there 3 Nicolas Cage movies out at the same fucking time? It's
Mhm.
like one of those things. Like somebody's in so many things they start to annoy you.
But hey,
But
2 out of those 3 movies, they were good. That he was, like
Yeah.
when you
yeah,
go to the theater.
Yeah.
but
I
when you
do
see
like Con
somebody too
Air.
much, when you see somebody too much, they get oversaturated. I think
Sure.
that's more the issue with him because he could put out another Guardians of the Galaxy. People are loving him again. You know what
Right.
I mean?
I
Um,
think yeah, I think you're right. I think they're playing it safe. I think it'll be a fine movie. It'll probably do well. Um, it just we've come such a long way from that era, right? Where it was such uncharted, and I no pun intended there,
Mhm.
territory that they didn't know what to do. They didn't have a story. They did the best they could there. Then you kind of move on to really the next one that kind of did really well for what it was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
yeah,
for a video game movie, um, Mortal Kombat kind of took the elements of the story and they kind of did really well with the actors, and it was a fun movie, and there was just enough fan service to the game that made it um you know at the time I didn't know anybody that didn't like the Mortal Kombat movie when
you
it came.
know why my theory is with that? Let's see if you agree or disagree with this. There's a darkness and an intrigue and a mystery to Mortal Kombat. When they tried to do it with Street Fighter, it was lame ass to me. It was just lame. It
Yeah,
was like
Street
a
Fighter was
mockery.
fun.
It was like a mockery. It was like laughable. It was cheeseball. Because something about those characters, perfect in a game, lame in a movie.
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat, there's a darkness and intrigue. It's almost like horror characters, right?
right.
Semi,
Right.
and
Yeah,
that's perfect for them.
rewatching it, I probably rewatched it about a year ago, and there is some, looking back, some goofiness, some silliness, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But it brought back, the nostalgia of seeing it in the theater when it first came out, and how much loved it. And yes, everyone talking about the music, the theme song was there. I mean, it was perfect for the time.
Right.
Um, and you always had people trying um, different ones. I'm kind of looking at a list now. The second one, not as good. No, the second Mortal Kombat movie, it was. I thought it was okay, but definitely not as good as the first one.
And I mean, even look at the games, right? How cinematic was the games? The first game, right out the bat, the real life likeness, how they did the characters, what kind of graphics did they do to match the likeness of the people? It was spot on. It looked like there's people in the game
Yep.
fighting.
The
Whereas,
digital.
whereas Street Fighter was so much more cartoonish, and I love both of them, but the Street Fighter just wasn't meant for live action movie like that. It just didn't do it right. It was just
Yeah. Well, in some studios didn't learn their lesson because eventually we got other movies to kind of fall suit. There was the Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li film. There's the live-action Tekken film. There's the live-action King of Fighters film, which is god awful, but I can respect it for its cheese and for what it was attempting to do. I think that Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li is probably the worst uh, Hollywood made American video game based movie out there, because if you want to talk about the absolute worst worldwide, we have to open the floodgate and bring in the Uwe Boll movies that he adapted and made, such as House of the Dead and Blood Rain and all of those. But we can stick strictly to movies made in the U.S. for now, and if this becomes a subject matter that again we want to expand upon, you guys are more than welcome to voice your interest in that. But let's take a look at where it all began with this whole approach, and I think you guys know where I'm gonna go with that. Of course, we've got the Mario Brothers movie, probably the one of the earlier, bigger, I want to say successful releases out there when it came to this idea.
If you look at how much went wrong in the making of that movie, it should have gotten canned.
Oh
Maybe
yeah, they were so drunk the entire time.
they were
The
Yeah,
so
act-
drunk.
no, they
and
were. They
which
couldn't handle it.
they
Oh yeah.
switched people out of the movie so many times and made so many creative changes and decisions, and Steve even switched out directors, right? There's so many terrible things that happen. It should have gotten canned just in the middle of it. Shouldn't have
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah. But everybody soldiered through and made this movie a real thing. There were several attempts by the actors to actually walk. Um, Bob Hoskins hasn't really talked that much about it, but John Leguizamo has been very vocal on his experience with the movie and working with Bob. And like BFG mentioned, they were constantly drinking on the set just to get through filming because there was so much heat with the directors and the writers and everything constantly changing, um, that every day the script was being rewritten. And so again, this is kind of where I take what I know now about the film and its production and have this sort of respect for it, appreciation for it. Is it accurate in any way? Not a lot, but there's a lot of fan service and tributes in the film if you can spot them. Most of them are pretty subtle. Um, for example, there's the bar that they go to is called the Boom Boom Bar, which is named after the guy that guards the fortresses in Mario 3. Bullet Bill makes an appearance as literally a gigantic bullet.
Right, right. They tried. I mean,
Yeah.
they were
Uh,
trying. you know, but it didn't work, and that's okay. I I think it's a double edged sword. I think it's too bad that such an iconic major property was the lamb to the slaughter to break way for all the rest of the movies that eventually came.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
like
know,
like they had to get their feet wet somehow.
right, right. They probably could have picked Duck Hunt, but instead they went with Mario.
Yeah. And again, a lot of the
Yeah.
times the cartoons or the animes that were being made were proving to be just a bit more successful, and I got to applaud them for trying to bring something like a video game into a live action scene, but again, whether or not it worked or whether it was the fault of the actors or the writers, it you kind of have to do your research when it comes to a lot of these, because a lot of these are pretty self spoken for. Other times there are those gray areas where you got to cut it some slack because with this movie especially, four different writers, two different directors, scripts changing every day. I mean, there's a lot of shit that could have really crashed this film and it didn't. But maybe like Ryan said, maybe that should have happened. Maybe that should have just completely killed the project. I don't know. I
Four,
personally
four
like it for
writers,
what it is.
four
Um,
different writers and two directors alone. That is frightening to
mhm.
me. That's six different visions coming together, and you trying to collage all that bullshit together into one streamlined movie. Fuck that.
Yeah.
That's a horrible idea. That's
Yeah.
like if we try to take six podcasts, including ours, and put it into one, it would be a fucking shit show. It would be so fucking. It would be so confusing, and I felt confused in that movie, like watching it,
uh
like not like high art confusing, like it's a fucking mess, confusing, and
so
like what were they thinking? Like kind of feeling.
so when you watched it or when you watch it, can you honestly say there's nothing in there that kind of brings a smile to your face in any way? Like there's nothing that that movie does for you at all?
To me, it's all in just such poor taste and execution and
What
jumbled ideas and
what
visions.
makes me smirk are those little things like Ryan was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like like oh, a bullet bill that's a literal bullet. You know, those sort of like those things when you like you're like, okay, I get what they're trying to do, and I just smirk, and I'm like, ah, all right, but it's not. You know, it was a miss. It was. It just
Yeah.
It's like when you feel bad for actors you otherwise respect. Like I
Mhm.
respect the dude, and again I'm bad with the names. The dude that played Mario because I loved him in Roger Rabbit.
Bob
Hoskins.
Hoskins. Yeah.
I love Leguizamo because of his fucking. He's got kind of a crazy style to him. He's very. Just think of him even in Romeo and Juliet. He's almost nutty, the way he
Right.
acts. You never know what kind of performance you're going to get out of him, right? And the same with Dennis Hopper. I mean,
He's probably at the time was probably the biggest name on the ticket
oh
there.
yeah, think
Oh
think of
yeah.
Dennis Hopper as a lunatic in Blue Velvet. I mean, he's brilliant. So I felt bad for the talent that was in it, and they had to do that. It's
Mhm.
like you know what I mean. It's like you're seeing your stars, some of your favorite stars working at McDonald's or something. You feel bad for them.
Right.
Um, that they're doing that kind of low art. And but I really blame the four writers and the two directors. You cannot have a cohesive fucking film and collage all that shit together. You cannot do that. It cannot. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't have four writers unless they're all working in tandem. See, that's like you remember. Think about it. It's like a writer and then they eject a writer and then they eject. Now, if you had four writers working in collaboration, that's completely different. But I'm saying this is like they wrote and then they abandoned the script. And then they
Mhm.
wrote it and then they abandoned it. Like you can't have that.
And I think it was confirmed too that uh nobody really in the driver's seats knew anything about the games or the franchises at this point.
Oh god.
If anything, Dennis Hopper took the role of Koopa because his kids wanted him to. Because his kids love Nintendo, his kids like Mario. He did it for his children. And at least you can see in the film, he's the only one that's really having fun with it. But
Yeah.
I think it's because he knows the script and the characterizations are so bad that he might as well just go batshit crazy with it and have fun, you know? And I got to applaud him for that because sometimes actors go into a project thinking, oh, well, they're in good hands and that everybody who's on the film knows what they're doing. And then they realize, what the hell did I get myself into? It's pretty common with actors and writers and directors. Even when I was in the theater, I sometimes walked into a role thinking, oh, maybe this will be different. And then I realized, nope, typecast. I just have a different name or I have an accent, or some BS like that. So it happens, but you can either walk from the project or just give it your all and have fun. And most of the time, that's what I did. So I don't blame them for being hammy at times or really chewing the scenery, because at least they're enjoying what they're doing. And I can't really say that a lot of people knew anything about Mario, but for sure, Dennis Hopper, Leguizamo, I think Bob Hoskins at least knew what the games were about. But clearly none of the writers did, and neither did the directors, no matter what they say. So, final thoughts, Mario Brothers movie?
Skip it.
Skip it. Okay.
That's just like looking through a shit heap
Mhm.
to try to find like a
A diamond
there's
in the
nothing
rough.
there's nothing that good that can be found there. I can try to give you a lot of movies and try to find something. Like I said, the cast is great. The execution was horrible. You can't mix that many writers and directors. You just can't do it.
Okay. BFG, any final thoughts on the Mario movie? It's so bad he's silent. All right. Well, let's move on to the second game adaptation that was released, one that did even worse than the Mario Brothers movie. Some of you may know about this one, some of you may not, and that is completely okay. And no, that is not a misprint. This is the trailer for the Double Dragon movie,
Mm.
which again features some A-list talent that as you watch, you're wondering why the hell did they choose to do this movie? And then you've got some rising talent. Scott Wolf, for example, right there. Mark Dacascos playing the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy.
You just gotta wonder in the studio and just the round table and the focus groups and the corporations here behind these movies. They greenlight this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They like where's the meat
Yep.
for what making a movie out of this stuff? It's paper thin. What you have to work with. It makes for a great video game. It don't mean it's gonna make for a great movie.
And this is an example where it could have made for a good, at least I'd say, martial arts, maybe gang movie, if they respected the source material. But this was a hard pill for me to swallow as a kid, because I love the Double Dragon franchise. I have games that are not favorites of mine, but as a whole, I love the series. I love the franchise. I've played the arcade games. I've played various ports. I have the cartoon series, the toys. I'm a big fan of it. So when I heard they were actually going to make that as a kid, I was stoked, because I'm like, maybe they'll do better with this than they did the Mario movie. And I didn't get to see it in theaters, so I was bummed. And when I was staying with a friend of mine, we rented it from, I believe it was Fry's or Smith's grocery store. And after I was done watching that, I felt like I wanted my time back.
So again, full disclosure, this is another one I have not seen at all. Not
I
even
I
the trailer you played is the most I've seen of this movie.
well, I own this movie on Blu-ray, so I'm more than welcome to share this in Discord if anybody wants to watch it. Um, I was so disgusted with this movie that for almost 10, maybe 15 years, I didn't talk about it. I didn't even want to see it again. I just was at ends with it, because that's how much I love the Double Dragon franchise more than I love the Mario franchise. And then I came across the VHS tape at some point, I'm older by that time, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm gonna give this a go again, and I'm gonna see if my opinion on it is any different. Nope, it's not. Um, I still see it as a complete disrespect to the source material, but I had I learned to appreciate horrible movies. And you kind of have to do that as a horror fan. You kind of have to appreciate the bad movies that either make the good ones stand out more or that are so bad that they're good on their own. And that's kind of where I place Double Dragon. It's a movie so bad that it's good. And subtleties to the game franchises, the portrayal of certain characters. You've got Billy, you've got Jimmy, you've got Marion, who is not the helpless victim in this movie as she is in the game, and God bless her, she doesn't get gunned down or anything like that like she did in the sequel. No Rosetta Stone mentions or anything like that. She's just, Marion, a teenager, fighting her life on the streets kind of thing. And then we get to Robert Patrick's character, Kogashuko, the would-be warlord who wants the power of the double dragons, which you think, oh, it's the martial arts that the Lee brothers were taught. Nope, it's a medallion. Uh, so it's like, okay, we get half whitewashed Lee brothers because one of them is purely Caucasian, the other one you can tell is of mixed background. They get around the loophole of saying, "Oh, they're not the Lee twin brothers, they're just brothers." Okay, so that's how you excuse the fact that you have one American actor and one non-American actor. Okay, fine. I'll accept that. And then you got the whole concept of the Double Dragon medallion, where one half of it gives you certain powers, the other half gives you another type of power. Then you got the guy who wants both halves to control the world. Cookie cutter plot point. And then I'm gonna see if I can find it again, but then you have characters like a Bobo, who
To me, it's but just this should have had the execution of like a classic Bruce Lee movie
yeah, you would
to be
think they
done,
would have.
but they didn't.
No, they did not. Again, a perfect example of not respecting the source material and using what's already there. And just saying, look, put this movie in a post apocalyptic setting, which they kind of do. The movie is a little bit post apocalyptic, but not as much as the games are. The games kind of borderline Mad Max, Fists of the North Star type of stuff. But here, people still live a happy, decent life, and then once the sun goes down, there's a curfew, and then once the curfew hits, all the gangs come out. So you got a little bit of like the pre-purge kind of rules there. Um, but again, it's a huge, huge mess, and if they had taken out the whole supernatural element thing, I think it could have worked to some extent. But they didn't focus on what they should have, which was, the Lee brothers, who are well known, well trained martial artists who are kind of vigilantes. They take to the streets and try to keep the neighborhood safe and all that. Nah, they made it kid adventure mysticism kind of deal, and it really didn't work. Um, but for me nowadays as an adult, it is a guilty pleasure. I can watch this, not take it seriously, not be as angry at it as I was when I was a kid. Um, and, again, you just kind of have to do that with some of these movies. If you love the franchise enough, yes, you can be vocal on how much you hate it or what they did wrong.
What if they had casted, um, like Chow Yun Fat and like Jackie Chan, and done like a Tokyo setting, and you had your gangs, maybe even have like a mob boss kind of
Yeah.
vibe at the end. They get to.
Hmm. They could have easily just taken the plot, expanded on it just a little bit, but then the rest of the movie could have been the game itself. Honestly,
Because
it
that's
would
what
have.
I like. That's what I like about this episode. We have the knowledge of these games that, like, what the fuck would we have done? Like, you know what I mean? We might not be movie directors, but we know we can write a fucking outline of a paragraph of how they should have executed it. We might not have been able to direct it, but we can tell you the style all day. We can tell you the style all day long of that they should have done
Hmm.
versus what they did. You know?
Yeah. And that's part of, again, the beauty of why I say some of these movies are either guilty pleasures or, maybe we still hate them to this day. Maybe we still don't like them. Maybe we never did, and probably our feelings will never change on that. For me, this is an example of where I did not like it at all. But then as I got another opportunity to see it, I'm a little older, I'm a little wiser now, so maybe that'll be different. And then you learn all about pre-production, post-production, all the behind the scenes stuff. And that's why I buy movies that have all that behind the scenes stuff, because I like to learn about what went right and what went wrong with some of these movies and how they could have been better had they stuck to the original plan, or if this movie is bad as it is now and this is what it could have been, thank goodness they changed it. It's okay to have those moments too. But
To me, what
Hey,
happened?
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to say one thing. I want to shout out to everybody in the chat. Waves and Games. Peter is asking if this is live. Yes, we are live. This is not a premiere. We are definitely interacting with everybody here. So uh, that hopefully that answers that question. We are
yeah,
we are live and on point with all y'all. So welcome.
be sure to take your seat because we've got plenty of show to go.
Okay, please continue, Ryan. You were going to say something.
Um,
Didn't mean to throw you off there.
no, I'm blanking now though. I completely forgot what I was gonna say. It'll come back to me. Take it over, Robbie.
Yeah, it's okay. What are your thoughts on this one? Would you guys watch it? Watch it again? Never?
I would check it out. I don't. I think this could be a good candidate for a reboot, and as long as
Yes.
they didn't do anything from the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
they took a complete fresh approach, and I think the martial arts action film makes sense. And yeah, there's a lot of potential there. So I wouldn't be mad if they rebooted Double Dragon.
I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah, I
either.
know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say the problem with the way that they treat a lot of these movies is a quick cash in. They're cashing in off a hot flavor of the week name, which Double Dragon had a stigma to it, a hotness in the arcade. They're cashing in and doing a cheap cash grab on that.
Uh-huh.
Whereas all they would have had to do was put in the effort of a well done kung fu action movie to execute this well. You know?
Yep.
That's what goes wrong so many times with these video game based movies. They're doing a quick cash grab of the kids' money,
Mm-hmm.
because the kids want to live out a film that they can sit in of their favorite game, and we can guarantee most of those kids come out of those movies pissed because
Yeah.
one, it's going to be hard to deliver a movie that lives up to how fun the game was to somebody. It's got to be done right. It's got to be done well. So I really think that a lot of these go wrong because they're really just, it's like they get your money, they're good. They don't really care how good the movie was. At the end of the day, they got your money from the tickets. And then a lot of these bomb because word spreads that it's shit. and then people don't go see it. Remember when Batman Robin came out? How fast word spread that it was ass?
Oh yeah.
Word spread that movie was ass. That after the first week or two, people like refused to see that shit. It sucked. And I mean, it doesn't matter how many fucking Burger King cups you got branded with the shit on it. I don't know if Burger King or McDonald's had it. And I don't care how much marketing dollars you have. When people find out it's shit and it's Batman on ice, I mean, word travels quick. And what are you going to do at that point? And I think that's what happens with some of these movies too. Word gets out, they're crap. They did a cookie cutter job, a quick cash in, and it backfires on them.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And the main goal almost seems to be just that. Do they make these movies as a quick cash grab, or is there actually somebody who is going to take this material and make something noteworthy? And
I think as we go on down this list, I'm sure we will get to some of those.
yeah.
I think we're going to get to some of these movies where I've been damn impressed with what they produce. So this case was not it, but I think we're going to get there.
Well, let's take a look at our next movie. Despite how bad it is, I am a fan of this movie.
It is bad, and they should have. I don't know. They tried, and I don't know if at the time, like their decisions made sense, right?
Yeah, right.
Having Bison being played by Raul Julia, having Van Damme in there. I mean, you had some of these huge names. I think they did the right thing. It just they had all the right ingredients. It just didn't come out the way the way they wanted or the way it should have been. So.
And Raul Julia, again, like Dennis Hopper, picked up his role because he wanted to do it for his kids. And sadly, this is the last movie that he made, aside from the Addams Family Values films, where he played
Yeah.
Gomez
Oh,
Addams.
he was damn sick in this
Oh
movie.
yeah, and
From what I understand.
you can kind of see it, but he was a trooper. He never
Yeah.
really wanted to let on that he was feeling ill, but you can hear it at certain segments. You can kind of hear it in his voice. His voice kind of takes a toll. But he
Yeah.
did a damn good job as Bison. I think he knew how bad the role was, but he's just going to have fun with it. And he's going to be over the top, maybe even more so than Van Damme. And Van Damme, I know, is not everyone's best pick, but I got to keep this in mind when it comes to them choosing him for Guile. One, he was still a big name at the time. Two, he looked the part. Nobody even came close to resembling
Right. Exactly.
Guile at that time.
That's what I'm
Nowadays,
saying.
I'm sure they
I
could
mean,
find somebody.
Yeah. I mean, in the '90s, I probably would have gone with the exact same actors.
hmm And then, of course, he had the martial arts experience.
Right.
So you wanna. Part of the reason why this movie, I liked it at first. Then Mortal Kombat comes out, and then Street Fighter kind of takes a back seat, and then I went through this praise phase where I hyped up Mortal Kombat more than Street Fighter. I've actually gone back over the years and started praising Street Fighter more for what it was than what Mortal Kombat is. Because whereas Mortal Kombat, I think, did a great job too of kind of adhering to the story and giving us the characters that we wanted and still kind of keeping it within the realms of believability. I liked that Street Fighter, while an adaptation, was still in many ways Street Fighter the game, only without the flashy, obviously the super moves and whatnot. Guile does do the flash kick in his fight with Bison, and Bison, of course, does the moves that he's known for, but he's given an explanation as to why he's able to do so. Um, Guile and a few of the other fighters just kind of demonstrate their natural talent for pulling off some of these moves, and that's what I like about it is they're believable to a certain extent, more than what Mortal Kombat kind of gave us.
Right.
And another example of this is uh, so during near the end fights where everybody's just kind of going at it. Um, there's the fight between Ryu and Vega going on, and they're fighting, exchanging attacks. Ryu blocks one of his moves, and then he like super strikes him, and there's like a flash of light, and but it's just a punch that he hits him so hard with that I guess Vega kind of saw this bright light or what have you. Now we're meant to, as fans, to watch that and go, okay, he did a Hadouken. Not necessarily, but it was Hadouken enough that I kind of like that. You know, I didn't need to see the fireball. It was just a good, mellow, subtle fan service, in my opinion. And I think that's what I like the most about the Street Fighter movie. Yes, the cast is there. There are some characters missing, like DJ is not there. Fei Long, unfortunately, is not there. But a majority of the fighters in the roster that we knew at the time is there. And it's subtle fan service enough that I can watch it, not take it seriously, get the guys together and just kind of like laugh and joke and just appreciate it for what it is.
This is another one I need to rewatch recently. I haven't seen it since the 90s.
Oh yeah, that's right. DJ was in
Um,
it. Sorry, I forgot about that.
so I would definitely revisit this one and probably see it, in a different light nowadays.
hmm
Hopefully more like what you're saying, and um, but I still don't think I still don't think it's going to be rise to the top as far as video game movies go.
Right. But I think
No,
it's a good example of
and
when you don't take a film seriously, you can enjoy it.
and then you have the most meta thing ever. Then you have the video game based on this movie. So you
Uh-huh.
have Street Fighter, the movie, the video game, which I really like that game.
With
For a
the
Street Fighter game.
with the motion capture. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I really like that game. So
And I forgot what stream I was in, but I had mentioned that Akuma is actually a playable character in there via code input. So they even got an actor or a stuntman to play Akuma, and I'm like, wow, who put their career on the line to do that? Uh, but you just reminded me of something. You brought up this concept of meta and kind of being self-aware in the Double Dragon movie, near the very end of the film, where Billy and a possessed Jimmy are fighting each other, there is actually a moment where they're duking it out, and Jimmy actually kicks the glass of a Double Dragon cabinet, the actual Double Dragon cabinet.
oh, that's hilarious.
And maybe that was someone's take on, dumping on this film and calling it shit because they kicked, through the arcade game. But I remember laughing at that as a kid and never forgetting that. Always trying to look for it because it is one of those moments where if you blink you might miss it, but it's still in there and it's hilarious even to this day. So that's another thing that I wish some of these adaptations actually did, which was, be that self-aware or break the fourth wall in a way. All right. So now we're starting
just too
to
silly for me. Just too silly for me. Just too stupid. It's like when you go to a fucking. It's like when you go to a fucking amusement park and they're doing the live stage show for 10 minutes while people are eating popcorn and they're just killing time before they go on the next ride. And it's a
Uh-huh.
bunch of idiots in costumes. But now they did nail some of the likenesses. I'll give them that. So I'll say
Yeah.
that. I'll say that as my positive thing. Some of the likeness was spot on with the characters, but the movie is just a silly, ridiculous joke to me
hmm
in a bad
Am
way.
I
Though.
to understand you are not a fan then of Mortal Kombat the live tour?
Yeah, stuff like that, or the turtles. What's that one?
Coming
The
out of
turtles.
our shells.
Oh gosh, no,
I
so
gotta
bad.
I gotta play my cassette tape for you then. that I got from Pizza Hut. My girlfriend actually, she swears she has it somewhere, but she still has I think she said she still has those promo items too, the poster, the cassette tape, because she was a big Ninja Turtles fan herself growing up. And we were talking about that one day. I was like, did you ever, watch, or did you ever see the on tour thing? And I think she actually got a chance to see that show, whereas me, I don't think I did. And I'm kind of jealous of that. Plus, her toy collection from when she was a kid was amazing. Um, but she mentioned too that she had that cassette tape, and I'm like, I wonder if every Turtles fan out there has that tape, still has it to this day, or wants to forget about it. So thank you for answering that question for me. All right, let's jump to the film that we probably all know was bound to be shown here and put, video game movies on the map.
That's right.
Had I known this movie was gonna blow up like it did, I mean, I should have as a kid, but with all the damn backlash we were hearing about how violent the games are and all this and that, I am really shocked that this movie got made. I think their big mistake though was making it rated PG-13, but I'm pretty sure that that was an instruction handed down from above
I
rather
mean,
than.
if it was R, I don't think I would have been able to see it in theaters. Back in the day.
Oh, I would have.
Um, I we I went to go see this many times, like as because Mortal Kombat for the longest time was my favorite video game. Period. Number two especially. Um, so I definitely, I can. This is almost up there with Ghostbusters, not quite. In a movie, I can almost repeat the lines too.
Yeah.
like word for word, just because I've seen it so many times.
Mhm. Yep, I would agree. I didn't see this a lot in theaters. Most of the time, we only got to see a movie maybe once or twice at the most. But this was one that I would frequently watch until I got my copy on DVD. Another thing that I picked up prior to this movie's release was the soundtrack that was
Oh
made
yeah.
to not only accommodate the movie, but also these techno remixes uh, that were supposed to give every
So
fighter a backstory, so to say.
So funny you bring that up. So because there's actually two different CDs that most people would go and buy at the time, and if you just wanted the famous Mortal Kombat song, you could pick up either one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there is Mortal Kombat the movie soundtrack, but that didn't really give you the full effect. There's also then Mortal Kombat the album by the group called the Immortals,
Yes,
and
that's the
that's
one.
the one that has the songs for the characters that go into their backstory and stuff. And I still have my original copy of that one too
I
from
had
back in the
that.
day.
I had that on. Let's see. I want to say I had that on cassette first, and then I got the CD later. But I'm so glad that someone on YouTube has uploaded the whole album because I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
where my copies went, and I'm a little upset by that. But I used to jam out to that soundtrack. I had some of my favorites, some that I would, have to sit there and painstakingly wait until I could fast forward in the tape to get to my favorites. Um, and then when I learned how to do like my own mixtapes with, two cassette recorders and all that, I just recorded what I wanted and left the real tape alone. But yeah, I kind of wish some of those songs had been used in later game adaptations, or at least more than just the intro song. Like I wish that they had used more than just that for the movies because some of those remixes were pretty good.
So and back in the day, I was actually into martial arts, and I was
Same here. Woohoo.
you know very involved with that. And they would use these songs for the musical forms at tournaments quite a bit. So this was a must-have. And I mean, just because we're happening, if you look on Discord, I went on camera for a second here. I have the cover art booklet right here, just sitting.
Nice.
Just happened to have it, and I mean, there's the full like comic, on the inside. It's really cool. And if you want it, I think you could. These are pretty easy to track down. It's not rare by any means.
Yeah, it should
But,
be. It should be about maybe $8 or $8.
Yeah. So,
somewhere.
and any Mortal Kombat fan, I recommend you grabbing this CD and having it in your collection.
And the crazy thing is that so of course a film's that does really well in the box office is going to have a sequel, so we get Mortal Kombat Annihilation 2 years later, and that movie doesn't do so hot at all. It does maybe less than half of what the first film does, and probably has one of the lowest scores on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb as far as a movie goes, let alone a video game adaptation.
Well, Street Fighter got 4
What's that?
out of 10. Street Fighter got a 4 out of 10. I just checked.
And on
That's
Rotten
pretty low.
and on Rotten Tomatoes they have a 13%.
I don't usually see a lot of even bad movies get below a 5.
Right.
Like that's a lot of bad reviews to get a 4.
And then of course, like I mentioned, if we bring in the Uwe Boll films, that kind of changes the curve a bit on what makes a shitty video game adaptation. For the most part, though, Mortal Kombat, at least the first film, is probably the highest rated out of all the films and cartoons and short VHS tapes that get released, because it spawns half a dozen media.
I think part of why it was done good, because it's easy to translate that environment and those characters and that world. Easier to translate that into a movie than it is a Street Fighter. You don't know really what kind of tone to take. How comical can we get? How over the top can we get? How much cheese do we do? Do we like this is like where the game, like the translation of this to a movie, to me is much more straightforward, and that's why I like this one too. Because, like, you know what I mean? Like you could, like, these so many of these other movies you could go wrong so bad, and they did. There's so much room for error. This one is not as much room for error. Like you can visualize in your head, anybody that knows Mortal Kombat, how the movie should be. It's easier than some of these other ones. Like fucking just the idea of a live action, again, Super Mario Bros. Movie. I don't fucking know how you can do that. Well, I don't know how you can do that well. I don't care who you are. I don't see how you can do that well in a live action. Whereas Mortal Kombat, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like paper, you can plot that out, almost sketch that out, what the movie should be. It's clearer.
And also keep in mind too that while the first movie was a success and should have shown directors and writers and actors, okay, here's what worked, let's build upon that. You get Annihilation, and the movie's a complete failure. It flops badly. They replace some actors. The storyline really doesn't make sense. Certain characters are cameoed, whereas previously they had a bigger role. And then you get this whole movie that's centered on Liu Kang rather than the group of fighters that it focused on originally.
Right.
And that tends to split the fan base a little bit. it gets people more aware of what exactly is going wrong with this sequel, and then fans just tear it apart and say, what the hell happened? You had 2 years to make a sequel that was noteworthy, and you gave us garbage. So,
It was, from my opinion, it was clearly rushed. It was clearly a cash grab. They were trying to quickly get this one out on the heels of the latest games being released, and it just fell flat.
mhm.
So it's too bad.
All right. So I just got the red flag here about, oh, you're using source material. So I'm
Well,
gonna
finally one I don't have to take a diarrhea dump on, as James would say. So I finally liked one, Mortal Kombat, a good. They didn't fuck this one up.
No.
The one.
So 2 years later, we get the, like I said, we get the Annihilation movie, which is a complete bomb. And then shortly after that, Hollywood tries again. And they say, okay, well, maybe we can be a little more cautious about what story to tell and what we present. And then we get probably I can tell you for a fact nobody willingly went to see this movie unless you were a fan of the franchise, because I don't know if many people know that this film exists. And if you don't feel bad, because I kind of wish it didn't exist either. But let me get the reel going. Here we go. It's a short little trailer, nothing really to brag about or feel bad about. Again, you're not missing much. And that's the Wing Commander movie. With big names at the time and a story that made no sense.
Now, weren't the Wing Commander games more movie like anyway, though?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they were I was going to say CG. No, they were fully motion video games. Every port was
Yeah.
every game was. And you had big
I,
names in that series too. Mark Hamill is in it.
yeah.
Um I'm trying to remember the guy's name from Back to the Future, but he played Biff Tannen.
Oh, Thomas Wilson.
Thomas Wilson, he's in it. There's a few well-known actors kind of scattered among the games, but uh, for all intents and purposes, they were all entertaining. Like you could play those and watch the FMVs and have a good little mini movie put together as a result of that.
Right. Now, I admit I didn't know there was a Wing Commander movie, but I am kind of surprised with so much FMV material how they didn't just kind of take that to the next level and turn it into a movie. So
Mhm. Yep.
you would have thought that's how they would have done it.
You would think so. I mean, the games pretty much spell out what the story is, no matter which part you play. Um, there are cues to the previous games throughout as well. So the movie pretty much wrote itself. But they, for whatever reason, just did not want to follow what was there. And, they took a risk as it was by adapting a franchise that was very niche also. Wing Commander being mostly a PC game. There are some various ports. I believe there's a Super Nintendo game. Um, I want to say Sega CD, but I could be wrong on that. Uh,
Well,
but it's a
I
very
recently
niche
hooked
fan
up
base.
Quesadilla Padilla with my copy of Wing Commander 3 on 3DO.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, I sent that along to him. I popped it and I checked it out when I picked it up, and it's not my type of game. So
Yeah,
he was interested, so I passed it on.
I gotcha. Again, falling into that pitfall of, is this the right source material we should be making a movie based off of? Because how many fans of Wing Commander are there versus how many fans of Mortal Kombat are there? They really took a gamble on this one, and filling it with a mixture of well-known faces and non-well-known faces. You had Freddie Prinze Jr. in there. Matthew Lillard is back again. They do that whole kind of like tag team where they're in movies together and still big names at the time, but they don't know
Can I ask
shit
you a
about
question?
Wing Commander.
Can I ask you a question that's jumping ahead a little bit? Do we talk about Tron at all? Because I honestly think uh the movie might not be perfect, but the Disney one that came out like 10 years ago or whatever, I honestly think they did an amazing job visually with that movie.
We can talk about Tron. I don't see a problem with that. Tron actually represents a series that took many years to even get a sequel, let alone is the sequel
Yeah,
going to hold up to the original, or is it going to kind of reinvent itself?
But like, I'm just saying visually, they might have nailed the look of that game and that movie, the newer one, uh, more than any other video game movie I can think of. Just how much it looks like the fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
Like visually, they nailed it. That's the problem for me for so many of these movies. They never nail it visually, what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
And visuals to me are way more important than the story for these kind of movies. They really are. I'm sorry. If we could talk about other genres, the story's more important than visuals, okay? But when we're talking about video game based movies, the visuals have to be fucking spot on because it's a visual medium. Video games are a visual medium.
And that's what I would have thought they were going to bring to the table with this adaptation of Wing Commander, because it is a visually striking game. But no, the CG looks dated and the editing is terrible. Um, I would own it honestly just to have it as part of the movie, of the video game based movie collection, but I wouldn't recommend it in any way. And I can only imagine what hardcore fans of the movie thought when they saw this. It's been known, honestly, that the only reason this movie gained any money at all is because when it debuted, part of the previews that were featured before the film included the Phantom Menace trailer. And most people paid just to see that trailer and then
yeah.
walked out on that movie because it's
Oh,
that
that
bad.
that makes sense. The hype around Phantom Menace was real.
Right, right. So that's all I can figure is the only reason this movie made money is because people paid to see the trailer and then I'm out.
Econ brings up a good point here about the Wizard. Would you consider the Wizard a video game movie?
I just
Considering it,
I just typed my
oh, you just
response.
responded. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree that it is still a 90-minute Nintendo commercial, but it's a wholesome 90-minute commercial. It's
it,
it's a
it
family
it
commercial.
is.
It's
It
what you
is.
would
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say my response would have been I'll allow it. Go ahead. Why
Yeah.
not?
Why do I wanna be
A
like,
Power Glove.
Ryan, you're a dick for this? Why do I want to punch the silent kid in the wizard so much? I just want something about him. I just want to knock him out. I don't know. He
Have you
just
always felt that way?
yeah,
Since back in the day?
And I love me some Fred Savage, and even the girls. Okay, and she does a decent job. That little silent kid. Oh man, I just want to punch him.
Is it
I
because
don't
he
know what
got
it is.
50,000 in double
What's he have,
tag?
like 2 lines in the whole movie? I forget what he says. He does say something.
He mostly says California. Then he
Yeah, that's
says
right, California.
That's what's so annoying about it. He's just this little bit. I just want to punch him. I don't know what it is.
Then he says he doesn't want to quit, and then he says his sister's name, and then that's about it.
Yeah.
Or actually, when he's talking to the Native Americans, he does say hi. But yeah, there's not much. He's got like the easiest job in that whole movie. And Luke Edwards has done interviews where he's mentioned that. You know, his career really didn't take off. He did a few more films after that and kind of just pushed acting aside. But he always remembered that. You know, he had the easiest job. He's already said it before. And he's like, what kid would not want to take on a job where you barely talk and your real goal is to play video games? Makes sense to me.
Makes sense. And yeah, absolutely.
I mean, shit, sign me up, you know? But I gotta say, even back then, most of those kids suck.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we get some kids who actually know these damn games?
And you know who he reminded me of, but a shitty version? Like, this kid was okay. Was the Jurassic Park kid. And he was in Radio Flyer, too.
Right.
Yeah.
That kid was all right. He was like the poor man's version of that kid.
Well, again, it's a commercial, not, so.
Right. There have actually been college papers and psychological reports done on that movie to kind of highlight how it's either a commercial or a family film. They're pretty comical. I like the approach that they take on it, but honestly, when you look at it, did any kid really pay attention to the message going on? No. They saw one game.
We
wanted to see more, damn it.
we wanted to see some Mario 3. Dude, come on.
Yep.
Get with it.
And to this day, I still battle the notion of getting a custom cut beryllium case for my Power Gloves.
And it's off topic, but speaking of Fred Savage, that Little Monster movie, oh my god. When they go in that fucked up world under the bed, it fucking traumatized me as a kid. What is that world? It's like they go into the gates of hell in that other world. Remember, in like the main guy at the end, his head is blown off in the back?
Yeah.
That is a fucked up kids movie, dude.
Hallelujah, I love it.
Tell me that's not scary, some of the scenes in that other world. Tell me the scenes in that other world aren't kind of scary.
Not to a demented ass kid like me. Not at all.
How about when Howie Mandel piss in the jar and have the kid drink it?
Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. Who wouldn't?
But isn't that hilarious? Tell me what kids movie today are they gonna let Howie Mandel piss in a jar and a kid drinks it? Not happening.
Nope. But that was when we were also way more lenient, had a sense of humor, and PG-13 actually stood for something. God bless you, Gremlins, for giving us that rating. So, we've kind of covered early stages of video game adaptations, and for the most part, they sucked. They maybe might have done slightly okay in the box office, but not many successful heavy hitters at this point.
It was a lot like when you go to a convention, you see a bunch of cosplayers, and you think it's cool, and you also think it's lame ass.
Mm-hmm.
That's like how I feel about a lot of these early movies. It's like some lame ass convention cosplay bullshit. Really.
Yeah.
Sorry. What it is.
And even then,
It's
cosplayers still.
It's some Disney World dress up playtime, 10-minute showcase. It's like Disney characters and like some kids that are in college, paying for their tuition by working at Disney World in the summer, dressing up as Disney characters in cosplay. It's like what a lot of those early movies were.
Hmm. And even still, cosplaying is done with some sort of sense of dignity attached, some sort of respect to the characters and the source material that they're playing. At least for most part, the hardcore cosplayers that I knew uh, did that and still do that. You know, they are that particular about how their costumes look and how they portray the characters that they do. So even still, you've got the fans who are doing a way better job than the Hollywood industries that are putting on these movies. So once again, we need
I'm just
more of
saying,
the
like,
fan
if
base
a
in
movie
there.
translated right, if a movie would translate right and they did it right, you would never think of cosplayers. You would think, oh, that is the role, that is the character, like,
Hmm.
you know. But instead, it's just clear as day. It feels like cosplayers in a movie, you know. And a lot of times they're really good actors doing it, but that they picked for some of those, but the movies didn't work.
Hmm. All right.
How
So
much do you think to blame that there was no CGI then?
what?
How much do you blame that on it, that the CGI wasn't there back then? Because some of these did need CGI for the special moves to come off right,
I
you
would
know.
say I would agree that the CGI wasn't there if Jurassic Park didn't make such a perfect example of how to utilize CGI the way that they did. How to blur the lines between CGI and clever filmmaking and editing and puppetry. If Jurassic Park hadn't proved to be a success with that, I would say that a majority has to do with the early tech, but we had it. We had it back then. We just didn't have the right people using and designing it, I think.
But I'm just saying that's why we didn't get the Avengers movies till late 2000. The CGI wasn't there till then.
Well, the
And even
CGI.
now, I'm not a big CGI fan. I'm not even a big CGI fan now. I'm just saying it took till the late 2000s for them to be able to make it look like the comic book or whatever, you know.
I would still argue that the CGI was there, but to take it to that grand a level, probably wasn't. I feel like that would have required a much bigger grouping of manpower to have pulled something off like that early on. I think that the tech is there, but how to improve upon it and make it work the way that we want probably wasn't. You know, and if you take shortcuts, people are going to notice. And that's another thing. You can notice at times when the CG is so bad it's distasteful, or where it's like, well, shit, they should have used practical effects here and had just done it the old fashioned way because that would have looked better. But there's always that argument of what looks better, and the biggest one, what's the cheapest way to do something.
Right.
So,
You know what the other thing is? Sometimes I feel like it's that everything is green screen takes me out of the movies more than anything.
green screen can definitely do that, but so can the actors and stuntmen that you hire for a film. Like in the case of this movie, for example, which again highlighted and brought attention back to video game based movies, but falls into the realm of Mortal Kombat where they got they got the right feet running and then they just killed their own creation. And this is a series that I was a huge fan of at the time. I've kind of been less impressed with some of the entries as of late. Um, but I will always like the first Resident Evil movie. I'll always like the first two for what they gave
I
us.
forget which one we were watching in Discord.
That was Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City that Mike was so awesome to share with us that night. And that was a different take on the mythos of Resident Evil 1 and 2. Again, they took liberties with it. Some liberties were good, some of them I didn't agree with, and some elements were fan service. Now in this one, you'll see that mix of CGI and puppets and green screen and whatnot. But a lot of people feel that the reason why this one isn't so great is because you didn't have just normal zombies. You had these character actors, and you had a plot line that didn't really follow any of the games at this point, other than the central idea of there was a mansion with a secret laboratory inside, and a viral outbreak occurs that these people trapped in this mansion have to escape from.
So who
I
survived?
I
Who
don't
survived
know
by the
much.
end? Who survived by the end? Mila or the raccoons?
Well, you know
Sorry,
Mila's
bad joke.
going to. You know
So
Mila's
yeah,
going to.
I don't know much about Resident Evil, honestly. I think I've mentioned this before. So I honestly, when we watched that in Discord of the Welcome to Raccoon City, that was pretty much my deepest exposure to anything Resident Evil, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty good. That, for what I caught of that movie, it was pretty decent. So
Yeah.
just from an outsider's perspective, not really knowing the games, not knowing the lore, anything like that, and just on a pure movie take, it was a decent little flick.
Now that raises a question that we haven't really touched the surface on directly. We've kind of indirectly talked about this. How much is a film's success or failure determined by the fan base, determined by the audience? Do you
100%.
I mean,
do you think we are
I would say
capable of
it's a lot.
fully boosting a film or killing it?
Yes.
100%. I mean,
Um,
what is even the other side? Like critics?
Critics,
uh,
the filmmakers themselves, the screenwriters themselves, the director, all the
I
other
honestly feel that
elements.
the only you can argue with me. I might be wrong, but I honestly feel like the only sway the critics have are either turning people away or turning them towards the movie more. They'll either kind of deflect from the turnout or add to it. You know, when they eat up some shit and they right Siscolini were 2 thumbs up. I mean, it does make more people more likely to see it. And if everything's getting terrible reviews by the critics, it does turn more people away. But I would say at the end of the day, it lives or dies by the audience and
Hmm.
the fan base.
because I was never into Resident Evil when those movies came out. I wasn't like, oh, I got to go see this. It wasn't. I had no desire, no. Um, Really, there was no reason for me to go pick Resident Evil out and go watch it on a Friday night. Depending on whatever else was out or whatever, just because I wasn't a fan of the series.
Let me make one side point, okay? One thing I don't think we're gonna breach on, but we got to make a point about some of these video games have way better chance of living on a TV based show through streaming now. Okay,
Hmm.
take this Halo one. That could live or die in the theaters. But I have a feeling this show is going to do good on streaming because what happens is all your Halo fans are going to show up to stream that shit, right? And it might not be enough to make it live and make enough money in the theater, but it will do good enough to do pretty good as that streaming TV show. That's the generation we're in now, completely different generation. So,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think um, not only that, but I think studios are more willing to take chances
Yeah.
and throw stuff out there and see if it sticks, and if not, then okay, they only invested one season or a couple episodes or whatever, and no harm, right? They'll move on to the next thing. So you're right. I think we're on the cusp of a new era with those sorts of things that hasn't really been dived into as far as video games are concerned. We've seen it with these comics with the Marvel series that have done really well on the streaming platforms. So,
And also think about video games in general, right? A franchise of a video game could have 6 releases. They could have 10 releases. Think of Mega Man. And I mean, if you got a TV-based streaming show, you can really elaborate on all the ideas and the plot lines and the characters. Like it's almost like unfair to try to fit it all in a movie. So
right,
you can
it's a
it
good
can
point.
really be a much better fit sometimes in a full-on show. You can explore all the ideas better. You don't have to cram them all into, really realistically an hour and a half, not even 2 hours. A lot of times these movies are. So
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a lot of good conversation going on in the chat right now. Some of us are discussing the RE films kind of on a whole, and I want to encourage this thought process because I'm eager to see where a lot of us feel about, or where we agree or disagree on when it comes to the
yeah.
success and failures of these movies.
So somebody like me, I'm clueless on that series. Okay, so can we point out like what is Ikun? What are some of the things you don't like about it? Like can you tell me
Yeah.
like what is Ikun not like, and what do the other viewers like about it? Because I really don't know that series about how they translate in the movies.
Yeah. And that's why I posed that notion in the first place. Is it really the writers, the directors, the actors, or is it the fan base as a whole solely responsible for the success or failure of these films? Because uh, Geeks with Cash brought up that if you take these films, if you don't take these films seriously, you can enjoy them. But that is the problem with the fan base. They hold these franchises so dear to their hearts, and that includes
It,
me.
it's
And
very personal.
yeah, it is. It is a very it's a very intimate thing to see one of your favorite franchises on the big screen. Nowadays, we're probably a little more closed-minded about that because of the fact we've seen so many failures throughout the years, and we're hesitant to see a new adaptation. But
Actually, I would say to that, shouldn't we demand more of our films? Like if you have to go in and just judge something based on like a whatever attitude, like let me just enjoy it for what it is, even if it sucks. Like
mhm,
shouldn't we demand more of what we're getting for our money? Like
yeah, and
that's
and
just my argument.
yeah, and I would agree too. I think that as the people who are really going to drive up the revenue for these films, because we're gonna see it at least once, if not multiple times if we really like it, or even if we really hate it and just want something to laugh at, we'll pay to see it again. I feel like there is that sort of sense of, well, you guys have a responsibility to deliver a movie that is enjoyable for fans of these video games. So I would agree with that point, but I also feel that maybe because we already know what we know about Hollywood, about adaptations, about how they're not going to fully adapt a material 100%. I feel that we should ease up on a lot of our approaches towards these films and just check them out, or if you really have no interest, just don't bother with it. Years ago, I probably would have been more of like, no, just don't make the damn movie if you can't give us the right adaptation. Just leave it alone. I'm a little more lenient nowadays. I'm kind of interested to see someone get it right, but it's far from few that I have seen somebody fully adapt a movie or a video game that well to the point where I will pay to see it again or I will buy the Blu-ray and DVD the moment it releases. Um, a lot of good points are being brought up here in the chat, and Ikun mentions how You have characters with a well-established story, and then when it's a complete mess, the way that they present those stories, it takes you out of the movie. And I would agree. I would agree. If a movie is not keeping my attention, whether it's a video game adapted one, a comic book, or what have you, I'm going to fall out of that movie and I'm going to fall asleep. And that's a telltale sign for those who are with me that I don't like this movie if I fall asleep. I've seen my fair share of crappy movies, but most of the time I can make it through all of them. If I am having trouble completing a film after multiple viewings, after several Red Bulls, I'm still falling asleep, that means that movie's not doing its job for me. So that's probably not a film I'm going to enjoy ever. And J Chip brings up how if you're not a fan of the RE games or any of the games that are based off those films, you probably will enjoy it because you have nothing to compare it to. You have no expectations. And I think that too plays a very pivotal role in whether or not these movies are going to work, movies are not. Are they going to be accepted? Are they going to get a cult following later? Because that is also another route some of these movies go down. They gain a cult following, they gain a cult status, and become immortalized because of their bad portrayal. So maybe there really isn't a win or loss with a lot of these movies. Maybe it just depends on the fan base at the time and who's watching them and who's critiquing them. I don't know. We've still got quite a few films to kind of cover, but I want to keep these points in mind as we go through some of these because I'm going to bring up not every film, but I'm going to bring up a film here and there, whether it has a sequel or not, whether it's well
There's a
received
few
or not.
I'm kind of itching to get to.
Yeah.
And one we did mention. Who was it? I think it was Geeks that mentioned about the Sonic movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's one
Yeah.
I definitely we need to talk about, and he brought up a really good point regarding that. So, but I won't skip ahead. We can wait to whatever
Yeah.
till we get there. So,
Well, let's kind of look over some of these because I did skip over Lara Croft Tomb Raider that came out after Wing Commander and before Resident Evil. And again, movie did well at the box office, but is still considered a bad movie because of how it's been rated by critics and fans. Most of the people admitting they only went to see that movie to see Angelina Jolie in a wet t-shirt anyway. So,
I mean that's fair though. That's a
yeah,
fair point.
that's what Lara Croft is in a skimpy shorts and a short shirt. There you go. It delivered in that way. Let's see. So then we got Resident Evil sequels. We've got the Yuva Bowl movies mixed in between House of the Dead, Alone in the Dark. Um, and then by 2005, we see Hollywood taking another big risk with adapting video games to film and also implying different levels of film technique, which, for the most part, from what I gathered uh, from the fan base and from just fans of the film itself, really didn't do so hot. But for someone like me, I can appreciate the aesthetic that they tried. I felt that for the most part, the film should have all been done this way, but that's just me. Maybe that's something that wouldn't have worked. I don't know, but let's roll that footage here.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
And here we have Doom.
Now, see, Doom as another one I haven't watched, and I think that one was more intentional because I didn't want to be disappointed, even though I heard mixed reviews on it. So
I think Carl Urban or Carl Urban, however you say his name, I think he nails it as a Doom guy. I don't, for what they did with his character, I don't see him as the Doom guy. He's a good Doom guy. He's just not the Doom guy. And don't even get me started on The Rock because he had no business in this movie. I could see why they got him. He was a
I
big name, and
exactly.
it's all testosterone here, but
Everybody drink 5 times.
You know, the Doom movie that could have easily been shot in almost the same exact style as Aliens, the sequel, not Alien,
Right.
Alien, with
Exactly.
with the Marines approaching
mhm.
and a similar kind of dark atmosphere, and them getting kind of overwhelmed and just. But and I haven't seen that one, so I can't talk on it. But I don't think it got reviewed well, did it?
No. Doom was a flop.
Yeah.
It seemed like it
I think some of the fans enjoyed it. That's why I said it
yeah.
had mixed reviews. I think there was a portion of the fan base that was
Mhm.
okay with it.
And kudos to them for trying to bring the first person aspect of Doom into the film. It does come very late in the film runtime, but kudos for them for at least trying to do that. I'm sure that it wasn't easy to do. Even as you watch it, though, it seems very artificial, seems very stiff. I think if they had more time to toy with it, maybe if they had perfected how to film like that before they made this film, it probably would have been better. And at the time, the film was rumored to have been completely done in first person. From the moment those credits roll to the very end, we were supposedly going to see the whole movie through Doom Guy's eyes. And I think that would have been one hell of a taking uh, in terms of difficulty if they managed to not only do it, but do it well. But based on what they gave us, I don't think a whole film like that would have worked. I think they needed to perfect that filming style just a bit more. But for what it is, I applaud them. It's pretty cool to see them, but it's just a bunch of fan service crammed in, especially at the last minute without any real explanation. And yeah, it. I would watch it. I would watch it if you're just curious. Honestly, I would watch it if you're a Doom fan waiting to tear something apart, rather than a few of the Doom ports that have come out over the years that fans have hated. Just gives you a new other media to kind
You,
of have fun with.
you know what game surprised me? That I hadn't played until somewhat recently. That I missed out on back in the day was Doom 3. Um, and I thought Doom 3 was actually pretty fun. I didn't have any expectations. I didn't
Mhm.
know anything about it, and it played out almost more movie like.
The main
There,
criticism of that was always the flashlight.
Yeah.
Remember, you could barely see a lot of it.
yeah,
They brightened
yeah.
it. Like if you have the Xbox release of that, they really upped the brightness of the whole game, so it's
That
easier to.
the original Xbox. Is that what you were saying?
No, if you have so you can get it now, like for $5 on Xbox, and it's like a
Ah,
revamped version where it's much brighter and easier to navigate because like you just couldn't see where the fuck you were
I,
going in
Mhm.
the
I think
original
it's on
release.
Switch too.
Yeah.
Also, Doom
But
3 kind of
when I
brought
was
back the
playing it,
horror.
yes, yeah, and that's I was playing it on the original Xbox because I picked it up, and I I never play my original Xbox, so um, I figured it was a good game to try out on it because I think if I remember at the time it was an Xbox exclusive.
And it was fairly well received. And they just said the other criticism was it took too long to get the action started. You got to go
Yes,
like almost
yes.
20, 30 minutes before shit pops
It,
off.
Yeah,
And people are
that's
like,
that
what
true.
part
the
is, and
fuck?
then and that's what I was referencing about. It's more cinematic. There is a lot of story there, but that was that era of gaming, right? PS2 and And Xbox, they were giving you those cinematics,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to really get the story going. So I thought it was fun. Um, but anyway, just slightly tangential to the Doom movie. So what's next, Zombie?
All right, we're gonna skip over some of these Yuva Bowl entries
Just
because again, he's trying to get his foot in the door in the U.S. And he's not doing a good job of it because he is ruining a lot of the franchises that he's adapting. Now, luckily for him, and this is where a lot of people don't know why somebody who is notorious for making bad adaptations is still allowed to do this, given his treatment of many different franchises. He's actually backed by his home country. So even if a movie flops, he doesn't care because he still gets paid heavily in royalties and he gets a fat check whether that movie succeeds or not. So imagine if we had that here in the States. Do you think that would actually increase the amount of crap that gets put out, or do you think that maybe people might pay a bit more attention to what they're putting out if they know that they're still going to be safe?
You know who that makes me think of? That I think that I would argue has had a lot more misses than hits
Ed Wood?
is the fucking M Night Shyamalan, M Night Shyamalama Ding Dong fucking
Uh,
guy. I think he's had way more misses than good ones.
mm-hmm. Yep. He definitely has his after the Sixth Sense, his direction kind of like went into what the hell territory and
Dude, The Happening was so bad that should have ended his whole career. It's so fucking horrendous, that fucking movie.
and yet I'll still watch that dumpster fire of a movie. I actually paid $2 for that DVD. That's the most I would ever pay for it. And even then that might be too expensive. All right, so now again after a string of misses, we're getting these very sporadic releases of video game movies, and this is one that proves to be successful not only with the fan base but with the box office. Critics didn't know what to make of it because obviously the critics don't play these games, but it does fall under Mortal Kombat syndrome eventually. But for what it's worth, I still recommend these movies for different reasons. But if you want a good adaptation since Mortal Kombat, this is definitely the route to go. Now, this trailer is a little misleading. It makes you think, oh, everything's going to be fine and dandy, mother and daughter on a trip. And then things go to hell, literally. Little girl is gone. Mother wakes up to find her daughter missing. Their car wrecked in this
Sounds like
town.
Silent Hill.
Yep.
I've
Welcome to Silent
never seen the
Hill.
movie though either.
This is my birth town. This is where Zombie Jail
So
T1 is from.
that's where Patient Zero originated.
Mm-hmm. Brings a tear to my eye before it falls out. Funny story. When this movie, I was in college when this movie was being released, and I was in charge of a video game club. I was the club president, and I was actually trying to get funding from the university for us to take a quote field trip so that we could all go see this movie and just to kind of ease the academia part, we were gonna write a paper on it, talking about where it succeeds as a film and whatnot. Because some of us were actual film and art students at the time. And when that fell through, I decided, okay, well, let's all go anyway. whoever doesn't have the finances, let me know and I'll buy you a ticket and whatnot so that we can all go. We get to the theater and my finger gets slammed in the door of my buddy's car.
Oh,
I should have gone to the doctor. I should have left right then and there and said, all right, guys, you guys enjoy the movie. I'm going to go to the ER because I'm hoping to God my finger is not broken. They don't have to amputate anything because my finger was pretty messed up. But nope, I said, I've been waiting for this movie all effing year. We're going to watch it. And I don't care if I have to sit in pain until this movie's done. I actually took my buddy's drink cup after he was done with it and I stuck my hand in the ice and just sat there watching the entire film. And then when the movie was done, I said, okay, you guys all go home. We're going to go to the ER. Hours later, everything turned out to be okay. And then we went for Waffle House shortly after that. And I was like, damn,
all's well that ends well.
I want to go back and see that movie again. And as I said earlier, Silent Hill was the perfect representation of when a movie does something right, but they could have gone a little bit further, I'll say. At least in my opinion.
I need to play through Silent Hill again.
Highly
It's
recommend
time.
1 through 3 for sure. And then at that point, you can kind of take your pick of which Silent Hill games you want.
I have a lot of nostalgia for 1. That's the one I played. You know, I used to play that after it was released, late at night with all the lights off, you know, in the living room. I'd love to freak myself out with that game. Yeah. And so I need to relive that experience. I haven't really played any of the other ones, and I think the only way I have Silent Hill 2 and 3 is on the PS3 collection. Hey. Which I heard is not a good way to play.
It's not, but it's the cheapest alternative to, say, owning the games separately.
Right. So if anybody out there got a greatest hits copy of Silent Hill 2 on PS2, you should reach out to me. Just going to say.
For the sake of you playing it and or streaming it, I'll probably send you my mismatched copy because somehow I ended up with a greatest hits disc in a regular case.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's okay. In this instance, that's okay. Because the greatest hits version has more content, is what I understand.
It does. Yep. So I kind of lucked out, but it's also very annoying because my OCD is like, no, that needs its specific greatest hits case.
Yep.
But nonetheless, Silent Hill, the series, much like Zelda, Mega Man, any of those game franchises with tons and tons of entries under its label, is what I call the salad bar effect. You just take what you want, leave the rest. You know, you're not missing much if you are that choosy over which games you prefer, because for the most part, Silent Hill is very self-explanatory. There's no real true sequels to each other much.
Right.
So, regardless of which title you pick up, you're going to have your own separate story anyway.
So, I was able to pick up for $5 a piece. I can't if it was, I think it was last year. The Silent Hill HD collection, Silent Hill Homecoming, and Silent Hill Downpour on the PS3. So, now would Silent Hill 3 on the HD collection be good enough to play there? Is the question. No? Okay.
I'm going to plead the fifth because expectations might greatly differ.
Sure.
But I'm of the mind that says whatever way you can play it, you play it. Because these aren't
Well,
exactly cheap games at all.
right. No, none of them are, but um, it's it's pretty cool that let me back up. It's too bad they didn't do a better job with the HD collection.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes. That's how I would put that too. They could have done better with that. And going back to my point about this film franchise suffering from Mortal Kombat-itis, that's what you get with these films too. The first one tells a great story, but they could have done more with the story and the characters and even just the overall setting. Whereas Silent Hill Revelations, which comes out, I believe, I want to say 2 years after, maybe 3, uh, was the opposite. Um, Actually, no, I take that back. It comes out 6 years later, where there's too much fan service and not enough good storytelling.
Yeah.
So take with that what you will. I like both films for different reasons, but if you want a much more solid story driven plot and good character interactions and whatnot, I would say check out the first Silent Hill movie for sure.
Awesome. I will.
All right, so now maybe Hollywood's at the point where maybe they get it, maybe they get the fan base, maybe they get what people are looking for. Um, so then they try their hands at newer medium at the time, different franchises. Um, some you wonder how the hell did this get past somebody's authoritative desk? Um, like DOA, for example, which I'm trying to find a trailer here. I don't know if I'm gonna. There we go. DOA, as far as a movie goes and as far as a video game goes, are very different yet very similar at the same time. And this is a movie fans knew exactly what they were getting. 100%. No one went into this movie thinking, oh, we're going to get some, you know, great piece of cinema, great piece of acting and storytelling. Nobody went into this movie thinking that. I think for the first time in cinematic history, both the Hollywood crew and the movie going fan base knew what exactly they were getting. Because if you know DOA, if you know what the series is about, you can call it a fighting game. You can call it, oh, well, they've got a volleyball game too. They've got all these different things. No, it's about none of that. It's about big breasted women fighting. If at all. Just big breasted women. That's what this is about. And because of that, honestly, I feel like this is one of the most, if not the most, accurate movies based off of a video game. Because it gives just that.
Let me just pose a question to chat because we got well, at one point it was saying 17 viewers and only 3 or 4 active in the chat. Let us know any we haven't covered yet, because this is the time that we want to get anyone we missed into the mix here. So anybody that hasn't been active in chat, let us know. There's got to be one or two we've missed, even if it's obscure. Let us know any video game related movies we've missed. Chime in, even if you just give us the title in chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm skipping some mostly because in between we're having movies that don't even draw much attention, Whereas a movie like DOA drew attention because everybody knows how bad this is going to be. Everyone knows this is going to be garbage, but in reality, you're
Well,
going to see softcore
there it
fun.
is. I was waiting for the bikinis. There it is. All right.
Yeah. And there's even an homage to Dead or Alive Volleyball in the movie itself.
That's the only DOA game I own.
there
Dude, let
is
Single.
a
me
there is
Dead
a
or
tribute
Alive,
to that.
Dead or Alive game. Let me just say, so fucking good though. Never underestimate how good a Dead or Alive fighting game is.
Mhm. I enjoy the
Graphically,
franchise.
some of the most beautiful fighting games ever made.
Yeah.
It does not get the fanfare of Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, not even really of
Who's
Tekken, but
is the
some of the
publisher SNK? Who's the publisher on DOA?
Tecmo.
Tecmo. Okay.
and like right out the bat from even Dead or Alive 2 and 3, like just some of the most lush visuals of that time and era. Like you could pop on Dead or Alive 3 and there's nothing around that time that looks as good as that.
Yeah,
Even
see.
Street Fighter a little behind at that time. At that time, then, like when
Mhm.
Dead or Alive 3 came out, it was even looking better than the Street Fighters at that point. Street Fighters caught up,
Right.
Oh,
and
my game I says apparently I also have a copy of Dead or Alive 5 in my collection somewhere. So
for me, they kind of peaked at 3 and 4, but 5 and 6 are still good. I just think there was like a magic to 3 and 4 as they're so ahead of their time, and 4 was kind of a early launch title for the 360, and it was an exclusive. You could only get it on 360, and yeah, it was just amazing. Far ahead of the other fighters at that time.
Now, would you
all
say
right,
that
Nobby.
DOA's influence on its fan base is probably what led to the movie, or do you think they're just like, ah, let's just make a movie off this because we know we can sell big-breasted women?
Yes. The answer is yes. That's
I mean, I agree. I think that DOA is a very underrated fighting franchise, but I gotta also highlight the fact that that game series is most notably known for its jiggle physics.
yeah. That's okay.
How?
And that's such a I agree that it's known for that, and it's so unfortunate though because
Yes.
everything else about the games, from the level design to the polish to the moves, the combos, the character design, everything is fantastic. They do get it does seem to get carried away with like the DLC on the fucking outfits.
Yeah,
Like
it
it's like
does.
fucking this.
And if I recall, in DOA volleyball or one of the games, I'm sure it was probably volleyball. You can pay to get DLC that makes their clothes smaller and smaller on them.
And you know what? That's really what the move they made that made people really not take it seriously because those are brain dead. All the Dead or Alive volleyballs, fucking completely brain dead.
I see we got chat kind of conversing back and forth what they like about the DOA series, what makes it good, what makes it not. I got to admit that when for as much as I love the franchise as a fighting game because I like playing DOA 2 a lot on Dreamcast, when they announced the movie, I was like, "Oh, you know exactly what people are going to see this movie for. They're not going to go for the fighting. There's no choreography worth, you know, paying attention to. They're going for the chicks, and I can't necessarily fault them for that. And because that's exactly what the movie delivers, I have to give it a high rating
So
for being a really good adaptation.
for for better or worse, in both these mediums, in both movies and video games, you have to go for that lowest common denominator.
Mhm.
And in the instance of DOA, it's titties.
Yes.
So I mean, that's you know, like that's what it has.
This
so.
this is softcore porn for the kiddies. That's what this is. It's to give your growing little boy an opportunity to see the female anatomy without actually seeing the full female anatomy.
So are you saying tomorrow after church I should fire up the Xbox and Extreme Beach Volleyball of DOA? Is that
I'd
that'd be a
say
good family?
I'd say either before or after church. If you go before, you can confess your sin and get it over with. Let's forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have lushed over the DOA women more than I should have.
Oh my
Forgive my
god.
$1,200 purchase for minimal
The
beachwear.
DLC. Oh my god. All right.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the next one. Let's go. What's
Okay.
next?
All right. So after that, then we get a bunch of hit or miss films in between that. Again, we're skipping over the Yuva Bowl stuff because he's already got like a huge chunk of it by now. You've got Timothy Oliphant, who takes on the role of Hitman in the movie. That too kind of goes from having just one movie to later they make a sequel. Then you've got Mark Wahlberg, who stars in the Max Payne movie a year later.
I think that was supposed to be really decent. I never saw that one either, but I heard good things about it.
I think Mark Wahlberg kind of nailed, and let me get the trailer up because maybe those of you in the chat agree or disagree. I think Mark Wahlberg plays a tough guy cop well, but I don't think he was perfectly suited for Max Payne. I feel like they should have gone with someone just a little more gruff, a little more like tormented.
I can totally see that.
You know,
I can totally understand what you're
Mark Wahlberg kind of
that.
plays Max Payne as like this sort of exhausted version rather than somebody who's been through hell and would rather be dead than alive.
Yeah.
He just comes off as tired to me.
So and this is totally random, but just for some reason the first person that came to mind, even though he's not a New Yorker, is Liam Neeson.
Mhm.
Oh, and Geeks with Cash coming in with Bruce Willis or Nick Cage. I think all those would have also done really well.
Yeah, I think Bruce Willis especially could have pulled it off a bit more. I think he could have pulled off if he had his John McClane look. I think he could have done well as Max Payne. But Mark Wahlberg was not a bad choice. I just think that they relied too much.
He's probably the cost-effective choice.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like they relied too much on a brand rather than a solid story and giving it to a no-name actor of sorts. If I was to make a selection as to who I think looked the part, for me it would have been Eric Mabius, the guy who was in the Resident Evil movie, who played one of the cops. I think he looked a lot like Max Payne, and he was kind of built a bit more. He was a bit tall. You know, he had the flat top kind of look to him. I think he could have done it a bit more than Wahlberg could have. You know, Wahlberg plays a tough guy, but for someone like Max Payne that's more drama and psychologically driven than, most tough guy cops are, I don't think he was the perfect fit.
How about Mel Gibson?
I could see that. Going back to his Lethal Weapon days, I could see that.
Yeah, and also I'm thinking of the movie Ransom too.
Ransom, yes.
Of how intense he was in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got to check this one out.
Not a bad film, but not what you would expect a Max Payne movie to be, because
Sure.
these illusions with angels and all that stuff. Like when we first saw the trailer, we were wondering how the hell is that gonna play a role in this movie, because that's not what Max Payne's about.
Right.
But it kind of comes full circle as the movie goes on, and you get an idea of what this all represents. Even though, as Chromo pointed out in the chat, he's a tragic character. This guy has been through so much, and we get that from the first video game. That, even when I played through it with my roommate, I had a hard time with some of the spots in the game, especially the labyrinth areas. Those uh, were just really upsetting to have to play through, and it got even worse as I became a father myself. So those are still some of the tougher
Damn.
parts of the game for me to play, but nonetheless, solid series. As for the movie, take with it what you will. This is a perfect example of a movie where you're either for it or you're against it just because of the fandom.
Ikun with the underrated pick there, Max Ron Perlman. As I like it. I like
Yeah,
Ron Perlman as I could see that too.
that's an
Good
underdog.
suggestion.
That's an underdog pick for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. But I like it. I see it.
Mhm. He definitely could have played the battered and beaten down cop, I think, pretty
Yeah.
well. And he also is still my prime choice for Cable. I think he could have pulled off Cable way better than Josh Brolin. I'm sorry. I when I see Cable the
Yeah.
comic book and I see
I
Cable
don't think you
the
need to
cartoon
apologize for
character,
that.
I'm like, Ron Perlman. Who is
Yeah, I
still
don't.
the best
I mean, but
Hellboy?
he. That's what I was going to say. Hellboy. Yep. Yeah. For some reason, Spawn popped in my mind, but no Hellboy. You're right.
That'll be getting a remake too. Okay, so then we have a year later Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. Not even gonna approach that one because it would pain me to see it. We get the Tekken movie shortly after that. In the mix is the Resident Evil sequels, about 2 years apart from one another, the Silent Hill movie. Then we get Prince of Persia with Jake Gyllenhaal. And I recall at the time this being a movie that a lot of people talked about, and then it just kind of went away.
So, again, and yet another one I don't know a lot about. Was this one more based off of some of the more like the PS2 entries?
Yes.
Because it's very difficult for me to see how this was based off the original Prince of Persia.
Yeah. We're not going to see. At this point, Gyllenhaal had finally gotten off Brokeback Mountain. We're not going to be seeing him running and jumping anytime soon in a dungeon. But he did do, from what I remember, and I haven't visited this movie since, what I remember, he at least looked the part. Whether or not he pulled off the character really well, um, I can't really say because I've never been that diehard of a fan of the series.
Sure.
But he definitely has the look of the modern Prince that you see in Sands of Time and the later games. Uh, it's just kind of blurred for me because of the fact that we also had what was that other
He's
movie?
he's a great actor. Unfortunately, that movie you wouldn't know. Like that movie doesn't highlight any of his acting skills. That dude has range. He can play any character, really. Like I really think he's one of the best actors out there. Him, Ryan Gosling, maybe DiCaprio,
See, there he
Christian
is with
Bale
the.
too. Has obviously had a lot of range. But like, yeah, that movie
Was
is
that
it's kind of that
was that
movie is
Ben
very
Kingsley
one
in
note
this?
for his
Yep,
acting.
it sure was. Yeah, I agree. On really don't give him that opportunity to show how good he can act. Like Donnie Darko, he's great in that movie. Um, and I did like him in The Day After Tomorrow, even though that film is a snuff film, in my opinion. Um, but like I was saying earlier, I remember him doing a decent job with this movie. I just don't know how accurate his portrayal of the prince really was, because they do take some liberties with it, if I
Yeah,
remember. Um, but that's not always a bad thing.
I just think whenever you do want like one of those medieval kind of roles, well, this may be medieval. I don't know, but like unless you're like Russell Crowe in like Gladiator, it's hard to really like own your acting skills in kind of a one night hulking man physical specimen kind of a movie role. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of like just a piece of meat. You're almost just like a piece of man meat. You know what I mean? When you're
Mhm.
trying to just play a big hunk, like that's not really gonna be a good acting showcase for you.
Right.
So I think if anything comes off it's kind of awkward. He's kind of awkward in that role because I would never think of him like that. I think of him more like the everyman actor. Like he can play a great cop, a great like private investigator. Like, did you ever see him in the movie Prisoners?
Mhm.
Detective
Yeah.
and trying to find the Hugh Jackman's kids and figure out who kidnapped them. And like he's really good in like serious roles, like everyman kind of roles, like regular type of characters, more so than some kind of like almost like a hero kind of a
Mhm. You
larger than life character in my opinion.
And he also, like, he did movies like Zodiac and that other film where he plays a
Yeah,
detective.
exactly.
Yeah, he plays movies he can definitely shine in. He was also really good in Spider-Man, what was it, No Way Home? Or what was the second one called? Where he played Mysterio?
Far from home.
Far From Home. He was
Yeah.
really good in that
See,
too.
I always judge the caliber of an actor as far as can they throw them their own identity away.
Mhm.
Okay? Like you see so many actors like it's I feel bad and everything. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's fucking Seth Rogen and everything. Even down to the fucking laugh. Like,
Yeah,
you know, I
I'm
judge an
about done with
actor,
Seth Rogen.
can they throw away their identity and just make you believe there's somebody else?
Mhm.
If you can see an actor in a movie and you believe they are that person and they are no longer their celebrity identity, then you have a good actor because
Yeah,
it takes talent to do that.
I agree. And that's what's unfortunate with some of these actors and actresses that get typecast whenever they try to branch out and be seen as something more than just either the character that made them a name or a franchise or a genre that makes them a name. They struggle with that. It can be really hard to battle if all the movie going public ever sees you is that particular role. It's like Mark Hamill with Luke Skywalker. Nowadays,
Yeah.
people see him as the Joker. Surprisingly enough, people see him as Cockknocker. If you're a fan of Jay and Silent Bob, like he's had to take on roles you wouldn't think he would do just to kind of break that mold of being the good old farm boy that Luke Skywalker is, but he still loves it too. He's never really gone on record and said he regretted doing Luke Skywalker or that he hates that role because it ruined him. No, he embraces it. He actually has the right mentality when it comes to embracing a character that really sold you as a face in Hollywood. So I think if other actors could see the beauty in being that typecast, or at least embrace the roles that made them who they are, no matter how good or bad they are, I think the career tends to be more successful because then they can start to branch out and not be so worried about, well, if they see me as Luke Skywalker now, then maybe that'll help me in this crappy movie that I'm in. Using that for good in a sense. So that is the last successful video game movie for a while. Again, there's all these different sequels that are being put out there. Need for Speed somehow got a movie backed by Walt Disney Studios. I don't know how that works exactly. Hitman gets a sequel. The Warcraft movie comes out, which, from what I understand, was a huge bomb. Even though it brought in a lot of money, uh, it's got a really low.
Was that riding off the coattails of World of Warcraft at the time? Is that what that was?
I'm guessing so, but
It's,
because it's called Warcraft, I don't know if they took most of it from the original game or World of Warcraft.
any real time strategy game, it's difficult for me to see that turned into a movie, except maybe Red Alert, which we're seeing play out in real time at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, hell, they had the nerve to take up Need for Speed, and that's it was produced and released by Touchstone, which is a Disney company. That's the label they put for when they want to make movies that aren't rated G. They usually slap them under
Right.
Touchstone Pictures. Um, and again, using a well-known face, Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad fame. He's in that movie, but it's street racing. What the hell? I mean, you're going up against Fast and Furious at that point. Do you really think you have a
Right.
chance? And the same could be said about Warcraft, where how do you adapt that style of or those style of video games and make a movie out of it? And they Blizzard had been dropping that idea for almost a decade. I think that's like I think they announced it in like 2005 or 2006 that they were rumored to be working on a movie, and then it comes out in 2016, and it just everybody I knew hated it. Um, and the box office numbers were there. The critics didn't like it. Fan reviews were low. Yet it still grossed uh, more money than Prince of Persia. So is this an example of where the fans that hated this movie so much were paying to see it again to bash it or what have you? Um, I haven't seen the movie all the way through. I'm not the biggest Warcraft fan. My girlfriend actually played World of Warcraft back in the day. Now she's addicted to the new Final Fantasy game, which is loads better in my opinion. Yeah, cast the first stone at me if you will over that. I don't care. I'll stand by that. But yeah, I really don't know much about where the film kind of falls within that storyline, within the mythos, because it's changed over the years. They've added stuff, they've removed stuff, and maybe some of our more hardcore WoW or just Warcraft fans can expand upon that in the chat. Personally, from what I experienced just from the backlash alone, not a single Warcraft fan enjoyed that movie. They thought it was complete crap. Didn't do anything to enhance the story. Um, so I would agree with the critics out there that this was not well received despite how much money it brought in. Okay, so um, we got Geeks with Cash kind of explaining that if they had stuck more to the storyline, it would have worked better. Okay. So they did use some of it, but they kind of branched off and did their own thing with it, is what I'm gathering. Okay. Okay. So example like the Resident Evil films, where if you're not a fan of the franchise, you're probably going to enjoy it, but if you are, you're probably going to detest it. At least that's what I can gather
Yeah.
from reviews and whatnot. All right, so then we've got Assassin's Creed. Um, Again, don't have much to say about that one. I hear again that this one was another failure, and the biggest issue that I recall with this one too is while it's Assassin's Creed in name, plot and story wise, it's not. And the whole like, uh, I don't think it's time travel, but it kind of borderlines that with this movie. I don't know. Really hard to place this one because again, this is another film that doesn't do well in the box office and was set to have a sequel made, but because it did so bad, they backed out of that idea. Um, but not a real, not a true adaptation of the game or the series at that time, from what I understood. They didn't really tell an Assassin's Creed story. They just told a story kind of deal. Oh, this is interesting. So I try to find some more information about this supposed sequel. Turns out Disney pulled the plug on it when they acquired 21st Century Fox as being like the main reason. So Disney was like, "Nope, we're not making a sequel."
They're like, we'll just put the end to that right now.
We're squashing that idea, and that's kind of where the Alien franchise is at the moment. Fans don't know if they're going to make a sequel or if we're even going to get that TV show they promised. Mike says it sends your mind back in time based on your DNA lineage. Huh. Well, I know that he's not any of the assassins we know from the games. Like he's his own character, but interesting. I'll have to maybe I'll care enough to see that one again because I saw clips of it. I didn't see the whole thing. I had no real interest going into that. I think once again they just grabbed Michael Fassbender because he was a big name from the X-Men movies, and they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Okay, so followed by that, we get a successful Tomb Raider movie. No Angelina Jolie this time. Different actress, different storyline. When I heard about that, I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to do a sequel after all those years, and I'm like, you're really going to get Angelina Jolie for this? And then it turned out, nope, not her. Um, I'm trying to recall what the source material for this one is too. I kind of fell out of the Tomb Raider franchise after 3. At that point, I kind of wasn't following the series as I used to.
Right.
So I don't know where this one falls in as far as which game it's getting its source material from and what story it's telling. Um, but it's sort of a pseudo sequel, but a reboot at the same time, and really adapted the story point of her father going missing and her trying to figure out what happened. which is part of what sets the stage for the early Tomb Raider games, and the early Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie just kind of glossed over. They really didn't include that as a pivotal plot point. But from what I gathered, this movie did really well, and because they were changing Lara Croft in a way that was more suited for this time period, overall it did really well. And the actress that played her, let me see if I can get her name. Alicia Vandekar. Uh, was well received as the Lara Croft. Um, and has replaced Angelina Jolie as the best representation. Even though I don't know if that's a fair comparison, considering no one really took on that role but Jolie at the time. But let me play the trailer real quick because they do have one. And it's more of like a, I don't want to say coming of age story because that's not really true, but it is kind of like an origin story where we start to see Lara Croft become the heroine, tough girl that we know her to be. Okay, come on. Load. There we go. I don't know if anyone in the audience had seen this one in theater. I saw this on cable back when we had DVRs and we could record our programs. But I need to add this one to the collection because I remember liking this a bit more than the Angelina Jolie ones. But not being a hardcore fan of the series, maybe that's where I kind of fall in with, if you're not a fan, you don't really have expectations group. But she definitely looks the part, I'll give her that. Also, I don't know if anyone else is familiar with this, but at one point in time, Denise Richards was the prime pick for Lara Croft. So, can you imagine if she had won the role and what the films would have turned out to be like if you know what her acting is like? We got some agreement here in the chat that the newer film was actually really good and even better than the Jolie films. Yeah, that's kind of what I gathered while, I was trying to, I've seen this maybe once and I didn't give it proper attention because I was always multitasking whenever I watched some of these films. But I remember the trailer hooking me when I first saw it, and I thought, okay, it's not Angelina Jolie. She looks the part, and this seems more geared to the plot that I remember of the first three games. At least, maybe that's what they're doing. I had no idea. But I may have to revisit this one. I don't think I knew the actress from anything else prior to this, and if I do, it kind of slips my mind.
I'm still thinking about Denise Richards doing the.
Yeah, in one of my Oh man, I'm gonna probably date myself with this if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Back when I had a subscription to, I believe it was Wizard magazine, uh, there was an article in there that discussed the upcoming Tomb Raider movie with Denise Richards set to star as Lara Croft in it. And they had her posed, video game was posed to kind of draw this comparison. And I was thinking, she looks it, but she's not going to pull off that part. Not at all. Um, and especially when I saw
Maybe it
her.
worked out kind of like I was gonna say Back to the Future,
Yeah,
or not Crispin Glover. What's his name?
Eric Stoltz.
Instead of Michael J. Fox, Eric Stoltz. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes that's the way it goes, and for the better.
So now, video game adaptations are proving that there's still an audience for them. There's definitely people willing to hash out the money for them. Ugh. And then they go and do this film, which I have nothing to say much other than the fact that I hate how they changed the storyline. And I hate how they got one of the worst actors ever, in my opinion, to star in this movie. I apologize if any of you guys enjoy it. I apologize if any of you guys are a fan of this particular actor. I'm not. But let's get this trailer going. Yeah, see, it's so bad that it's buffering.
I'm still here.
Why, oh, why was this movie made? Quite frankly, between the main actor and his co-star, I don't know who's the bigger ape.
Ooh. I guess this is Rampage.
Yes. This is Rampage. And
It'd
at
be like
this
trying to make a Frogger movie.
and at this point, the Rock's movies are all the same. You can
Yeah.
argue that action stars movies are all the same. Arnold's films are all the same. Stallone's, Bruce Willis. To some extent, you'd be right,
Uh,
but at least they're all entertaining for the most part. You know the reason why I enjoyed The Scorpion King is because he was barely in it and he barely talked. At that point, I don't think there's really a single movie that features The Rock that I can honestly say I have enjoyed. And while I may not be the biggest Rampage fan, I don't own every game, but I've played every game. Why was this plot so hard to follow? The story writes itself in the arcade game. It writes itself
Right.
in the home consoles. Why did they need to take what was already there, flush it down the toilet, and make an even bigger piece of crap?
Well, it's almost like they went back in movies, tried to kind of do things on their own, and it did not work.
Yet this movie still brought in money. And that probably has to do with the fact that it has The Rock in it. I'm not going to deny that the guy has, you know, staying power. A lot of people know who he is. A lot of people know him for what he's done. I just don't think he's a good actor. I can't, like, he's definitely, when he was in WWE, he was definitely a man on the mic. He had the ego, he had the character, he could do all that fine. But that does not make you a great movie actor. And he was already doing movies like Skyscraper, he was already in the Fast and the Furious movies, which has now completely been overtaken by him and his family. I used to be a fan of the Fast and the Furious series, not anymore. I think it died after Tokyo Drift. Um, but Rampage is a game that has been around for years. For the most part, fans still remember it. Fans still remember what the story is. And it's basically just a knockoff on the Godzilla movies where three people were unfortunately exposed to a radioactive material and they turned into these creatures. Simple. You don't need to add more to that, really. You could just, if you want to sweeten the tea, then you can add little subtle details, subtle differences, you know? This whole The Rock has a pet gorilla and there's this experimental gas that's causing him to grow and oh, by the way, it got out and now it's contaminated some animals that had nothing to do with the game at all.
Right, right.
Just
This
wow.
this this reeks of some Hollywood producer intervening and forcing them to make these changes would be my guess, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Who the hell knows? I'm glad I didn't see it in
I'm
theaters.
not watching the behind the scenes. Yeah.
I I haven't even seen it yet. I've seen clips and that's enough only because I couldn't skip the ads when they were on. I've read the Wikipedia entries and the IMDb entries, and again, while it's a high-grossing film, I feel like this is one they should have just left alone. But Warner Brothers made money off both this and Tomb Raider, so I'm sure that's part of why they did it because they were high off of Tomb Raider success, and they're like, well, what other movie can we quickly adapt and butcher at the same time that nobody will probably pay attention to? Hey, let's take up Rampage.
I think we're also able to get the rights to that super easy and cheap.
Maybe, but after talking with one of the creators of the Rampage franchise, I actually met him at a gaming convention and he signed my Master System copy. I feel like if they did get the properties legitimately, they probably would have been on board with that. I don't know if they actually worked with Warner Brothers or not on acquiring the rights, or maybe that's why they changed the story just enough so they can make their own film. I feel like this is one we could have done without just right off the
Yeah,
bat.
for sure.
Fine tune it, have it stick to the original storyline. Get rid of the damn Rock. I'm sick of him. um, but
All
I'm
right.
sure
What do we got next on the list here?
I'm sure that my disgust for the Rock probably mirrors the disgust of this main actor. We're going to roll on to the next successful and probably one of the most successful video game adaptations in cinema. Once I can bypass commercials. Everybody's naming titles that probably are good. Just if they've got the Rock in them, I don't know if I can stomach them. But I'll stomach this movie.
Yeah, I second that. The Rock's in too many movies.
I'm sure my disgust for The Rock probably mirrors people's disgust for Ryan Reynolds, especially in this movie.
This movie. It was way better than I thought. Like, way better.
That was the general consensus. When you hear that Ryan Reynolds, who was skyrocketing off the Deadpool fame, is gonna voice Pikachu in a
I
live
thought it was a
adaptation.
joke at first.
Yeah,
I did. I thought it was a complete joke, a complete parody when they released the trailer and saying Ryan Reynolds was playing Pikachu. And
especially
that
because of Deadpool.
well, even before Deadpool, he was doing some raunchy stuff, crazy stuff with the stoner comedies, that sort of stuff that he was in. Um, anybody seen the movie Waiting?
Yes, great movie.
Yeah, so that's another one I'm thinking about here. So, he had done some adult humor fan. Uh, but then yeah, this movie I was hoping we'd get to this movie because it really impressed me, blew me away. Kids loved it. It was a lot of family fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think we actually went and saw this twice at the drive-in as a family. It was good.
Yeah, we went and saw this, I believe, opening week as well. And while I'm a Pokemon fan and, didn't have expectations going into this because I'm thinking, well, a live action Pokemon movie might be fun. The animated films were, for the most part, doing really well, even though by this time they had already become direct to video, direct to home release films. They were still pretty good, relatively speaking. I just remember the biggest backlash was that Ryan Reynolds being Pikachu, and I thought, well, maybe it's all just a big joke. Maybe it's because he's still in that Deadpool mindset where he's breaking the fourth wall and just, saying and doing a bunch of weird shit, and maybe he's just pulling our leg about it. Nope. And
Had you played the game?
I had played a little bit of it, but I did that one. Um, but I got to play a little bit of it. And while it's not a complete 100% adaptation like this is a Detective Pikachu movie, but again, not entirely based off the source material. It's almost like a different telling or a different story altogether, but for what it
Oh
is,
yeah, I was just curious.
for what it is
No,
and what
they
it
did a
pulls
good job.
off. Yes, they did.
They did a really good job. And J Chip bringing up the fact that there was a fan outpouring to have of Pikachu in this movie, which I think that also I could totally see Danny DeVito being
Yeah.
Pikachu. And then yeah, I don't know if you remember that, but I do. It was a huge fan
Uh-huh.
movement to try to get Danny DeVito as Pikachu.
Because I remember too having this conversation where I just pictured Pikachu being fully represented in the way that DeVito did his role of Phil in Hercules, or as he portrayed the Penguin in Batman Returns, kind of like this like edgy, gruff, in your face character. Even though Pikachu is very soft and sweet looking, but you've got like this gruff voice coming out of him. I think that could have worked too on a whole other level than what it did with Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
But I I remember just watching it and wishing that that world had been real. How you could go out in the wild, get a Pokemon. It was almost expected of you to have one by this point. And yeah, they either worked with you in your job or you went to school and they went to school with you, and just really showing how the Pokemon could be used more than just for cockfighting. I thought it was such a cool take on that mythos, and being able to see a lot of recognizable ones, you know, be real. That was just so cool. I get that feeling every time I watch it, and I'm always down to watch it, whether on stream or in Discord, because I know Matt Moses hasn't seen it yet, and I offered to play that for him and anybody else who was interested in watching it, so I'm always up for that. Will it make you a fan of the Pokemon games? Maybe, maybe not. But as a standalone film, if you know a little bit about Pokemon, or at least who Pikachu is, I think for the most part you will like the movie. So, following up with that, we get another successful video game adaptation, although it doesn't bring home as much money as Detective Pikachu does. But does that necessarily make or break how good a movie is? Not necessarily.
No.
Movie take home, just like ratings, can always be messed with. We've already seen what happened with Rotten Tomatoes at one point.
Right.
Already been proven to be debunking their own ratings in favor of certain films. They sure as hell did that with the new Star Wars trilogy. That was actually proven. So yeah, good job, you guys. All right, this one's being a little slow, so I apologize. This is not only one of the most grossing income movies ever, but it's also one of the highest rated adaptations too. Why do we gotta have previews in previews? That makes no sense to me. There we go. Nope. A preview and a preview. Clear that. Okay. Ah, bummer. Come on.
Just a little technical difficulty here.
Yeah, IMDb is not working with me right now. Okay, I think we got it. There we go. I will admit, this film kind of took a little convincing for me, especially with how horrendous the original version of him looked.
Right.
Um,
But it really redeemed itself.
yes. And as Nick mentioned earlier, this was an example of where the fandom spoke so loudly and clearly that this is not what we want. They went back, fixed Sonic's design for the better. Unfortunately, it was the animators who felt the backlash of that, working under those tough conditions to ensure that the movie would be released on time. But nonetheless, gave us a heck of a Sonic
I'm
movie.
I'm glad it was pushed back because it paid off.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely did. It's so much fun, and now it's led to their sequel. There's going to be another one coming out soon. So, um, it was again so surprising, so well done. Wouldn't have expected this. Jim Carrey absolutely knocked it out of the park as Dr. Robotnik. Um, and yeah, if you haven't seen this one, please check it out.
Backlash, but another thing that was similar to the outcry of Sonic's design was the look and design of Robotnik. I didn't mind the fact that Jim Carrey was not 100% Eggman. I kind of felt like what they were going to do with that was they're probably going to show him become that over time, which it looks like they are starting to go down that route towards. Um, I'm really
Yeah,
grateful that they got the now voice actor for Sonic to reprise that role, because that tends to be something that producers will shy away from and get someone cheaper. But they made the right choice in getting the same guy, and I think the casting choice for Jim Carrey was definitely spot on. He's having fun with that role again. He,
yeah, for sure.
just like how he had fun with the Grinch, he's having fun with Robotnik here, and he's, at least for me, like he sold the Grinch, he's definitely selling Robotnik for me nowadays, and I'm actually really amped to see the sequel. I'm glad that they're kind of taking off where the first movie ends, and then they're bringing in another familiar face or two. So if you haven't seen that one, please check out Sonic the Hedgehog, especially if you're a fan of the gaming series. Another good Sonic-based media that I would recommend is Sonic the Hedgehog Saturday morning cartoon, rather than I mean, you could watch the other Sonic cartoon if you're more into slapstick comedy style, whereas Saturday morning was darker in tone, kind of like what Gargoyles was in Disney's early stages.
Right.
Um, and that's why I like that one more. It actually shows what would happen if Robotnik won and Sonic failed. So it was like a darker, edgier take on the franchise, and more importantly, the story. So, all right, where are we at here? Wow, we've not only
So
seen one.
uh, uh, I was looking at the list, and there was a couple I didn't see we talked about it that actually came out before this. Um, back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the Angry Birds 1 and 2 movies.
Yeah, I skipped
And
over those because they're more animated rather than live action.
well, I think they should at least get an honorable mention because again, also really well done. Really, for a mobile game basically that eventually came into full on, theatrical releases. Uh they did a great job with it.
Now, as someone who is not a fan of Angry Birds, not that I hate it, it's just not my kind of thing. Um,
Sure.
what what would you say pro and con of the Angry Birds movie or movies? Because I know there's two of them, and I know that the Angry Birds movie brought home a lot of money because of its
Yeah.
popularity as a mobile game. But from what I was told, the game doesn't really transfer over well. So, what?
No, so this is another instance where you have um they had to come up with a story of sorts, and so they pay homage in the story to the game, and the fact that there are the different types of birds. They do explode, sometimes, but they just use the characters to create a really fun story, um, that that because there's so little to go on the mobile game that you didn't know what to expect. So when you came in and you got they kind of pulled you into their world, um, with the birds having to, if I and I it's been a while since I've seen them once, so I may be getting both these movies mixed up. Pretend, I think in the second movie they or something with the castle. Um, it just really worked. It was just a lot of fun, and the kids even really enjoyed it too. So, um, if you don't need to know anything about the games, it's like another one of those animated movies that comes out all the time. Like, again, I'm not going to put on the same level of Shrek, Toy Story, but you didn't need to know anything when you went into those movies either. So, um, I I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I skipped over some of those mainly because of the fact that while they're video game based movies, I mostly stuck to the live action ones.
Sure.
I didn't talk about Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which was a box office flop. Final Fantasy Advent Children, another CG movie that kind of did well in sales and boosted the popularity of the Final Fantasy series. Mostly because it borrowed
Yeah,
from 7, and we already know that 7's, for some odd reason, the most popular. I don't get why.
it really is.
It really is, though. Uh, and then in between
And
that,
we didn't talk about all the other Pokemon movies that were made or anything like that. Um,
yeah.
to the other one that was animated that probably deserves an honorable mention is the Ratchet and Clank
hmm
movie.
Which didn't
I
receive a lot of
never
screen
watched it,
time in my understanding. They really didn't go out of their way
so
to promote that or keep it in. I don't even know if it was released in theaters. And if it was, I don't recall it being out there for very long.
I think it was, but I think it was very short lived. So
Someone had mentioned in chat early on the Dead Rising movies were a thing. Halo has had various movies made, all CG for the most part, except for that mini series that was live action based. That was okay. I liked that one. But it wasn't a full blown movie. It was like a TV series kind of thing. So there's a lot of different variety in terms of live action, animated, CG. Um, there's just a different amount of titles and franchises that were made into films or straight to video kind of deals. There's some taken from Japan that are out there. Like there's a Yakuza movie that was made. I haven't seen it,
Nice.
but I'm
Deal with
interested
heavy
in it.
metal. Was that a comic originally?
Heavy Metal, yes, was a comic. And then that got made into a movie in the late 80s, I want to say.
Yep.
So now we're at the point where I guess you could say movie adaptations are being taken a bit more seriously than they were. It's almost like now they're kind of paying attention and saying, "All right, we kind of got to stick to the script and try to make the movies that people actually want." There are still some stinkers from Sonic the Hedgehog till now with Uncharted. Um, the new Mortal Kombat movie is one that still gets debated to this day. You either like it or you hate it. I like the fan
I
service.
meaning to check it out.
I like the fan service for what it gives, but I will stand by my point and say that the character the movie focuses on we don't need. We're better off just with the original roster.
Right.
Um, if I had to choose a favorite fighter in that game, it would definitely be Kung Lao. I think he not only looked the part, he had the closest representation of the character, uh, at least from the more modern Mortal Kombat titles. I think he probably fit the bill more than any of the other characters they had in that movie. Um, it does well in sales, but if they had released that film in theaters, I don't think it would have done so hot. I think it was better off just kind of being a stream direct to DVD kind of thing. I have not seen Monster Hunter all the way through, and this is an example where I would fall into the realm of not knowing much about the series might help me to enjoy the movie more, but at the same time, because of how I know a lot of people still play Monster Hunter, I kind of wish that I had the knowledge and the fandom for it to kind of appreciate where the games are now, and then maybe I might be one of the hundreds out there that are bashing this movie for what it wasn't.
Right.
Oddly enough, uh, just last year, and I haven't seen this yet because I have no ways of finding it, and maybe I'm overlooking it, but there was actually an adaptation of uh, the movie is called Werewolves Within, but it's based off of um, what is the game? Is it the same name or is it something different? I know I've played a game like this and I own it. I'm just trying to remember what the title was because I think they changed it just slightly. But
For the
that
movie.
yeah, for the movie. But it's considered one of the best adaptations ever, even though it didn't really bring home a lot of money. It's one of the higher rated, if not highest rated, game adaptations that we've talked about. I'm going to see if I can find a trailer for it. And I know I've played a game based off of it. I'm just trying to remember what it's called. Uh, I think it's Wolf Among Us. I think that's what it's based off of. Who's
Now,
the killer kind of thing.
isn't isn't that the show right now with Josh Gad and It's on Peacock, the network, the streaming network. Unless it's got the same name. It's called Wolf Among Us.
Is it a show though? Because I thought it was a movie.
No, I'm telling you, Josh Gad. I forget the woman's name. She's married to Borat. Dude that plays Borat. Sacha Baron Cohen, that actress. And it's a show called Wolf Among Us. It's just came out a couple
Huh.
weeks ago. The new show.
Because I know there's the movie and the game that it's based off of. I didn't know it was a show. That's interesting. So we've got a movie and a TV show based off, or possibly based off the same video game. That's pretty cool. Yeah, if we went into discussion about Yuva Bowl movie, Z-Kun, that's gonna cost us another hour or two, cause I don't, with the exception of the first House of the Dead, I don't think there's really a movie of his I can say that I honestly liked. I mean, even by definition alone, the House of the Dead is horrible, but I can enjoy it for what it is just because I happen to like House of the Dead. But as we start to go through his catalog of crappy adaptations, yeah, you're gonna lose me to rage and disgust at that point. And I apologize, I am not able to find a trailer for this one, so we may just have to kind of skip it. Alright, so there's that. And then of course we've got the new Resident Evil movie that just came out, Welcome to Raccoon City. Again, I liked it for what it was. There's just enough fan service in there to kind of keep me invested. Some of the changes I don't see the characters doing, but that's speaking from the fandom that's been there since the first Resident Evil game. Still recommend it though. It is a good adaptation, and that's kind of how I look at it. It's not it's just a Resident Evil movie. It's not the Resident Evil movie. And here we are full circle with Uncharted, which again I have not seen. If anybody has, I know Edwin mentioned that he was gonna go see that, or that his work had paid for him to go see it, which is a very nice setup. Uh, from what I can
Small role in
tell,
it.
it's doing well in the box office according to the numbers. It's making decent money. Um,
Wahlberg's in a small role in it.
is it a small role?
I mean, I thought the guy that plays Spider-Man is the major star now.
Yeah, Tom Holland. Um, yeah, critics are praising him for his performance, but they're not saying much about Wahlberg or any of the other well-known stars that we know in the film.
Say hi to your mother for me, okay?
They probably just did enough to meet the expectations where Holland, probably stepped it up a notch.
I know going into after seeing the trailer, I thought Wahlberg was coming in to be Drake. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, maybe he didn't do amazing as Max Payne. Maybe he might do well as Drake. Nope. I was like, Tom Holland, he's like way too young for that. But I don't know too much about the plot of the movie. So I don't know what they took from the Uncharted games at that point. I really think, honestly, the fan film that was done with Nathan Fillion, perfect. I think Nathan Fillion was probably the best choice for Drake. But if there are other ideas and suggestions, feel free to voice those. Also, if you have seen the Uncharted film. Let us know what you think about it. Spoiler free as much as possible, but we would like to hear what you think about that film because I don't know if I'm going to be seeing it anytime soon, although I do have some friends and loved ones that are huge fans of the franchise who, as far as I know, haven't seen the movie yet, so maybe I'll go with them. I'm just trying to go into this one again with no high expectations because the most common complaint that I've heard about is the fact that Tom Holland is too young to be Drake. And I can see that. You know, anybody can put on the same attire that he has and call themselves that character, but it is all about the attitude and portrayal. So I want to believe that he's going to bring to that role what is needed and what is necessary and maybe have fun with it, but not be a huge failure as many of the other previous movies have been. Yes, I think what we all need is an Oregon Trail movie. Honestly, I think that would work better as a TV show than a movie, especially if the characters start dying left and right. I guess in a movie you could get away with that, but I think it would be more effective as a TV show. Okay, Mike is saying it's called Wolf Like Me on Peacock, not Wolf Among Us. Spoiler, they all die of dysentery. Y'all must have had the bad water then. No snake bites, no broken bones, no none of that. Well, I apologize everyone. IMDb is completely crapping out on me right now, so I can't really show any trailers for any of the stuff that we've mentioned. But considering where we are right now as far as length goes, I think we've covered just about every movie that had a significant impact in some way. I know there's a lot that we did not discuss. You know, we kind of just highlighted or mentioned name only. Um, Mainly for the sole purpose of the fact that we wanted to look at movies, whether good or bad, that actually had an impact in Hollywood. Um, and a lot of these adaptations are mostly sequels anyway, at least for the most part in America. You can always look at the movies that were adapted in Japan and in other countries. You can look at CGI movies that were made, animated shorts, what have you. There is a lot of different adapted media out there. It all just depends on what you're looking for, but for today's purpose, just mostly looking at American cinema. Uh, since Uncharted is the most recent film, again, I don't know how really well it's doing. I'm only able to read what I can find out there on it. But from what I understand, it is doing well. It's considered the fourth highest grossing film of 2022 already. Whether that's going to go up, I don't know, but it must be doing something right if it's bringing home the bucks. Um, but if anyone has seen it and can recommend it or say, kind of stay away from it or what have you, feel free to do so because I want to know if this movie is worth seeing as well. And by the time I get to it, though, it'll probably be on Netflix or something. But who knows? Maybe we'll find the time to go out there and watch it in theaters. I'm still gonna stand by the fact that I am eagerly awaiting the Morbius movie. I will definitely find a way to get out to that. Um, Oregon Trail kind of was Little House on the Prairie, except without Michael Landon and without all the other popular characters and actors that were on that show. But I still feel that that would make a great show. Might make a good movie, but I think they should kind of stretch it out more and make it really a trip down the Oregon Trail because there's so many sites that we see anyway. It'd be cool to see them visit every fort, every landmark. I think that would be fun. Um, whether or not they should do the Yuva Bowl route and splice in game footage with actual real life, real time footage, probably not, but I think I'd get a good laugh out of that. Who knows? Well, gentlemen, we are at the 3.5 hour mark. Does that mean this is our longest episode to date?
A lot of
I
movies to
think it
cover.
doesn't.
A lot of movies to cover.
I
Yeah.
didn't think we would talk this long on a subject, honestly.
I thought we were gonna
But
look at a lot of just like very minimal specific ones, but once the chat got
yeah,
going and started highlighting titles and what they thought of them, I was like, okay, let's see if we can include more in there. So, um,
no,
I want
it
to
worked
thank
out.
all
It
you
was,
guys
it was
in
good.
chat for keeping this going. Uh, we all kind of talked about some of our favorites, what our take homes were with some of these. We didn't highlight everything, but I'm always up talking about this kind of thing in Discord or in other streams as well. Uh,
We
yeah.
can always do 3 hours on the Three Ninjas one day, you know?
Oh God, I'm not gonna spend an hour per ninja.
But you could.
That's a franchise that really got butchered. For sure. It got the Final Fantasy treatment. Um, which didn't make any sense to me why they would go and launch one film ahead of the other, but then, you read up on this stuff and why it's different or why the actors look younger in this film and older in another. Uh, Made
Right.
sense to me once I found out what happened there. But yeah, uh, interesting how long this episode went, and we have you guys to thank for that because chat really kept. I thought we were going to be finished with certain titles, but people kept bringing up others, and that's what I like to
Yeah.
see. That's what I like to read about and discuss with you guys when you guys bring up stuff that we don't even plan for. That's always fun.
Lots of good points, lots of good discussion. Thank you guys.
Lots of movies we're always up
Now, remember,
to
we're throwing
stream.
in that Nickelodeon to be voted on for next week. We forgot to throw that in this week, so if you guys still want that Nickelodeon Ultimate Special for us to do,
Yeah, definitely.
it's
And
going to be in the topics this week.
we'll be hitting the month off with that topic along with some of the ones that we've been reposting, mostly because the interest is there, and sometimes the margin in difference is either greater or smaller than what it was previously. So I'm eager to see what will happen once we get to those choices to see which ones you guys really, really want to talk about outside of just, the newer, fresher topics. But this was one that almost took the win last time. So glad we could be here to talk to you guys about this. If you are interested in seeing any of these, please let us know in Discord because chances are I have them on DVD or Blu-ray, or we can find them online, or someone else is bound to have. Like Mike always has some of these films readily available for us to watch too. So if we want to do a movie stream party with some of these, I'd be more than up for that. And if there's any
Nice.
others that you guys want to talk about, yeah, just let us know. Let us know in Discord. Let us know on Twitter. You guys know how to reach us. And if you guys have topics for future podcast episodes, share those with us as well, and we'll put them on the community tab of my channel, and we'll see how the votes work out. So in closing, if out of all the films that we've talked about, could you guys name any that you would recommend, good or bad?
I can. Ryan, I'll let you go first. So if you got a couple,
The
you
only
would
one
recommend.
really is Mortal Kombat. I think that most of them suck.
Okay.
I really do. I still do.
That's fair. It's a fair take. I would agree with the Mortal Kombat suggestion. If you hadn't seen the original Mortal Kombat movie, go back and watch it. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ones I mentioned too already would be uh, Sonic the Hedgehog, Detective Pikachu. Um, those Angry Bird ones, again, if you want some animated, mindless fun,
Mm-hmm.
that was good. And try to go back over this list. That's probably going to do it.
The second one looks like it might be a lot better than the first one. Maybe.
The Sonic movie?
I think it might be better. But that's if what I think they're doing, they do with respect to the source material. I'm going to argue that for
Sure.
just about every adaptation. For
So
me,
yeah.
for me, since I'm a glutton for punishment, I'd say if you haven't seen them or you haven't seen them in a long time, revisit Mario, Double Dragon, and then
Oh my god.
compare and
Zombie. I dare you.
compare and
I'm just kidding. I
contrast
don't care.
Street Fighter to Mortal Kombat, because that's just fun. Um, if you want an accurate portrayal of a movie, watch DOA. Plus, it's a boob fest. I mean, that's why most of us saw it back then, and I'm sure that's why most of us would see it now. Um, can't go wrong with Silent Hill 1. Can't go wrong with Resident Evil 1. Um, and a lot of the newer movies that have come out, if you haven't seen those, Detective Pikachu, highly recommend that one. Highly recommend Sonic. And until I see Uncharted, I'm going to kind of keep my mouth shut on that one because I don't know what they're doing with that one yet. But,
Same.
yeah. Nonetheless, you have plenty of options to choose from. And whether or not our episode has motivated you to watch any of these or chat has motivated you to watch any of these, if you want to watch them with us, I'm always up for it as long as I'm available. I'll watch even the worst of these movies and kind of shed some light
Yeah,
on them.
it's okay. It's okay to like shitty movies too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
Like
guilty
you can
pleasures.
like shitty movies. That's fine. Like no, I'm being serious. Like there's shitty movies I really enjoy. Like even though they're shitty, you
hmm
know. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Is what I'm saying. I'm actually being serious.
Well, that's what a lot of these are shitty movies. You just kind of, you do
Yeah,
it
it's
with
okay to like shitty movies.
yeah, just take them with a grain of salt for what they are. And like most of you have already said, just don't take them too seriously going in. If you're a fan and you have high hopes for a lot of these, you're going to set yourself up for a
Yeah, you
downfall.
better lower those expectations a little bit.
Exactly. Well, that's all I've got. So, until next episode, everybody, this is Zombie JLT1, your patient zero. Wishing you all a good night. Thank you all for being here and keeping the chat going.
I'm Richard Ryan.
And Chris from Big Family Gaming signing out. Good night, everybody.
Yep. I will open Discord, even though this episode ran relatively late compared to our other ones. But if y'all want to meet up for the little after party that we always do, I will open up Discord in just a moment. And if not, I will see you all possibly tomorrow because I may be live streaming again. Or maybe we can do movie day or what have you, and I can stream on Monday. Whatever you guys want to do, just let me know. But thank you all for being here. We'll catch you all later. And enjoy that awesome ending.